My children chose their stepdad over me for job security after our divorce. Now, 8 years later, they want to reconnect because my business is booming. 8 years ago, I, 58, discovered that my wife, Lisa, 50, was cheating on me with one of her college friends. When I finally caught them, they'd been having an affair for nearly a year. When I found out, I immediately moved out of my house and filed for divorce. We were already having a rough time in our marriage because she didn't think I was making enough money as a high school baseball coach, and despite my best efforts, she kept complaining about everything. We fought frequently, and filing for divorce did not seem like a difficult decision to me at the time. Our 2 children had already moved out, so I had nothing to stay for. Unfortunately, that divorce cost me my relationship with my children as well, because for whatever reason, they chose to support their mother. Initially, they tried to persuade me to be gentle with her because she had been a stay-at-home mom for a long time. So they tried to tell me that she must have been bored with her monotonous life. In addition, after they had moved out, we began bickering over everything. Naturally, she was dissatisfied, and I was also experiencing financial difficulties. But I couldn't understand why my kids were trying so hard to persuade me to forgive Lisa, especially since I was experiencing the same problems she was. However, I had not gone out of my way to cheat on her. In fact, after every fight we had, I would try to make up to her and make her feel special in some way. Obviously, none of that mattered to her, and I was furious that my children were pressuring me to give her another chance. So I ended up fighting with them about it as well, and for a time they cut me out of their lives. After the divorce was finalized, I began to feel very lonely, especially since Lisa remarried the man with whom she had been having an affair only 2 months later. I wasn't speaking with my kids at the time, but when I tried to reach out to them, they did forgive me, but it was just something they said for the sake of it. I don't think they truly forgave me at the time, because they didn't invite me to any of their milestones for the next few years. In fact, I had little contact with my children until earlier this year, and the only reason they are trying to get along with me now is that I started my own business with a couple of my friends a few years ago, and it has recently taken off. So I'm doing well for myself, and I'm guessing that's why they're here. To provide context, I had been a high school sports coach for a long time, but I was severely underpaid and overworked. I had a buddy who worked at another school, and the 2 of us were having financial difficulties. While trying to figure out some retirement plans, we decided to speak with a couple of other people and try to start our own facility. That way, we'd still be able to coach kids, which was something we were very good at and had a lot of experience with. However, we could turn it into a business and use it to fund our retirement. So we recruited another friend who was interested and knowledgeable about business, and we got started. To be honest, we didn't expect much from it at the time, but we are pleased to report that we are doing very well for ourselves right now, and I am proud of how far we have come. Our facility is quite popular, and we are thinking about expanding soon. I'm guessing my children heard about it because they contacted me earlier this year and began trying to get on my good side. I was initially relieved that they were trying to involve me more in their lives because I assumed they had finally come to their senses or something. I didn't suspect they had any ulterior motives, but the 2 of them paid me a visit a few days ago. My oldest, Ethan, and his sister Chloe, are now married. Ethan and Chloe married 5 and 3 years ago, respectively. I was not invited to either wedding because they informed me that their mother and husband would be present and it would be too awkward for everyone. I was very upset about it, but they said it couldn't be helped. The wedding would be too full, and they promised to make it up to me at some point, but they never did. But, like a fool, I kept waiting for them to realize one day that I was as much of a parent to them as their mother. I thought it was finally happening, but when they came to see me recently and started telling me how they had heard that my business was doing really well and that they wanted me to start spending more time with my grandchildren and also help them out financially, I realized what was going on. It was difficult for me not to be angry with them at the time, but I told them I would definitely consider it, and they seemed satisfied enough to leave. But after they left, I blocked them everywhere because I suspected they were trying to take my money. Ethan has 2 children. One of them is 7 years old, the youngest is 1 year old, and Chloe gave birth to her daughter 7 months ago. And guess what? I have not met any of my grandchildren yet. My first grandchild was born 7 years ago, and I still haven't met him. Of course it hurts, and I've tried to persuade Ethan to bring over his children or to invite me over so I could meet them. And when Chloe's daughter was born, I tried to meet her as well, but they always refused. Lisa and her husband would always make the same excuse, saying they didn't want things to become awkward. It hurt to have to understand and let go all the time. They finally want to give me a chance to play grandpa, and I'm guessing it's because their finances aren't going well. I had no idea about any of this before, which is why I didn't completely cut them out of my life. Just putting it out there, I'm not really in touch with most of the extended family, and I'm not into family gossip. But when my kids came to visit me after so many years and started trying to be nice to me, I realized something was very strange about the situation. So after they left, I blocked them, and just to satisfy my own curiosity, I decided to ask around about what my kids were doing. That is how I discovered that they had been experiencing financial difficulties for the past few years. Furthermore, their relationship with their stepfather was no longer all sunshine and rainbows. I found it shocking because from the photos they had been posting after their mother remarried, it appeared that the family was very close to the guy. But things appear to be turning sour because he intends to sell his company. They sell furniture, and after Lisa married him, my children began working in his company. I don't want to say it because I'm not sure, but I'm guessing that's why they were so eager to take their mother's side in the divorce. They thought that if they could get me to go easy on their mother instead of prolonging the divorce, it would guarantee them a job at their stepfather's company. Basically, Lisa's affair partner had bought them out, and I had no idea because I had never suspected anything like that would happen. Anyway, the problem right now is that the company hasn't done well in the last few years, and Lisa's husband wants to sell. But my children want him to keep the business. He owns the company, so he stands to benefit the most from the transaction, and he's fortunate enough to have found a buyer right now. But my children oppose the deal because, despite receiving a portion of the proceeds as shareholders and upper management employees, they will undoubtedly lose their jobs. They want to make a long-term plan for themselves. It's a big deal, and a lot of family members are aware of it because Lisa has a big mouth and has been venting to anyone who will listen. So it's no surprise that their family is fighting right now, which is probably why Ethan and Chloe came to me for help. It's no secret that we're doing well. We're running ads and such. And the word-of-mouth thing is also working well for us. So, after putting all of this together and speaking with a bunch of my relatives, I decided that I was going to block my kids and have no interest in their lives. They have had no interest in me for the past 9 years, and they are only here now because they are in trouble. It feels insulting, and I feel like an idiot for expecting them to come to their senses and apologize to me. However, a few days after I blocked them, they returned to my door and began demanding that I let them in. Even though I told them I didn't want to talk to them, I told them that I had heard from the family about what was going on with them and their stepfather, and I knew they were only here to get financial help from me. And that the reason they left me in the first place was because their stepfather could provide them with stable jobs and upper management positions that I couldn't. I called them sellouts. And in response, they accused me of being insensitive and resentful, despite the fact that they had no such intentions. They told me that they simply wanted to make things right with me because they realized that, at the end of the day, I was still their father, and they couldn't keep prioritizing Lisa over me. They also told me that the only reason they had asked for financial assistance was because of their children, not because I was doing well financially right now, and that it was disgusting that I had reached that conclusion after listening to a slew of bad gossip from the family. This happened 3 days ago, and I've been extremely upset about it all. It's so bad that I had to take time off work because I can't stop thinking about what I'm doing at the moment. I know that logically and rationally, the rest of the family is unlikely to lie to me. They would have nothing to gain from it, and that the rest of my family has always been nice to me, especially after my divorce. They've always looked out for me, and I appreciate it. So, I don't think they're lying or gossiping. They're simply telling me what I asked them about because I was the one who investigated the situation. That being said, I'm not sure if I should give my children the opportunity to work things out with me or just help them out financially. After all, I am doing well enough to support them, and I'm pretty sure they aren't looking for something long-term. They'll probably get a job after the company is sold, and they're probably just asking me to be a safety net for their children. I haven't asked them what kind of money they want, whether it's an investment, a loan, or just plain old goodwill. But in any case, I know that financial support is a part of this, and I don't want to pass up an opportunity to reconnect with my children and build a relationship with my grandchildren simply because of that. The way they discussed the situation when they visited the other day has thrown me off guard, and I'm not sure what to think anymore. I've just been constantly stressed, and I keep wondering if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life by excluding my children from my life. And maybe I'm being insensitive and resentful, as they said. If I let my ego get the best of me, I'm not sure I'll ever get another chance to work it out with my family. The only thing stopping me right now is my fear of being used, which I do not want. I really don't know what to think anymore. I feel lost. And I don't think I have anyone I can talk to about this openly. So, I'm here. And please understand that I'm just an old man trying to figure out life after being pretty much alone since my divorce. As much as I hate to admit it, I miss my children and want them in my life, but I'm not sure if this is the best way to go about it. So, I don't want to get financially involved with my children. Update 1. Thank you for your comments. I guess I needed a reality check because, in desperation, I had considered talking to my children. But I realize I'm being used, and I shouldn't be. Such a doormat for them. That's what I've been doing for years. They would speak to me as if they were doing me a favor, but they would always ignore me because they preferred Lisa and her husband. And now that I understand why they preferred him, I don't think there's any going back. I've even discussed it with my coworkers, and while they were aware of the history, they were shocked when I told them about the current situation and everything I had recently discovered. They stated that at first, they believed that my children had been manipulated by Lisa, which is why they did not want to communicate with me, but that there was still hope for reconciliation. But now that they knew they'd been bought out by their stepfather, there was no turning back. They told me to keep my kids blocked for my own self-respect and sanity, because if I didn't, they would undoubtedly burn a hole in my pocket. I'm still not sure what kind of money they wanted. Even if it was small, I don't feel obligated to them. Even if they were telling the truth the other day and asked for the money for their children rather than themselves, I still don't owe them anything. They have never brought my grandchildren over to see me, nor have they allowed me to visit them. So, why would I connect with anyone? I know it sounds insensitive, but it is true. I can't start feeling bad for kids I've never met and giving money to charity. So, if this makes me insensitive and resentful, so be it. I don't care, and I don't have to justify myself to them. I'm just going to stay far away from them and live my life. It will hurt. But I don't think it can hurt any more than it has in the last 9 years. And if I can put up with that without complaining, I believe I can handle the aftermath of cutting them off right now. At least this time it will be my decision, and I will have control of the situation rather than them treating me poorly. Anyway, thank you for listening to me. I really needed to get my feelings out somewhere. I will keep you updated on any developments in the situation, and thank you for your support. Update 2. Hello, it's been 3 weeks since my last update, and I promised that if there were any developments in the situation, I'd post here to keep you updated. So while I was at work yesterday, Ethan and Olivia showed up with my grandchildren and began demanding to see me. I was busy with a training session with a couple of students, and I normally don't take meetings at that time. Whoever wants to meet me must wait, but it appears that they refused to wait. I'm not sure why they expected special treatment, given that nobody knew they were my children. Even if they did, that did not qualify them for preferential treatment. Anyway, our receptionist informed me of the situation and stated that they were unwilling to wait. I was quite annoyed, so I asked security to accompany them to my office and make them wait there so they wouldn't cause a scene in the lobby. Then I took my time finishing the training session, and after making them wait for nearly 30 minutes, I returned to my office so they could meet me. It was petty, but they needed to learn that they couldn't just show up to my workplace and expect me to entertain them at any time of day. Anyway, when I returned to my office, it was clear that both Ethan and Olivia were very upset. My grandchildren also seemed bored and fussy. So, as soon as I walked into my office, they began lecturing me on the value of time and telling me that it was very rude of me not to speak to them and make them wait so long on purpose just for spite. Especially since I knew my grandkids were also present. Their entitlement irritated me, so I told them that I treated them the same way I would any other person who came to see me during a training session. Others could do the same if they could wait for me to finish my work before meeting with me. The fact that they expected special treatment from me simply because they were my children was ridiculous, especially given that I had never been treated well by them before, let alone receiving special treatment because I was their father. And it was entirely their fault that they chose to bring their children along. This was a training facility, and I was here for a very important job, so if they couldn't take the fact that I was treating them normally, they could leave. The only reason they waited was that they wanted to. I had not forced them. I had been very curt with them, and I could tell they were upset, but I suppose they needed the favor from me so they wouldn't make things worse for themselves. Instead, they quickly changed the subject, telling me that they had brought their children to meet me for the first time so that I could build a relationship with them and begin to feel like a grandfather for the first time in my life. It was very difficult for me, but I had to shoot that down. I told them I was going home because that was my last training session of the day, and now that I was finished, I just wanted to relax. Besides, I knew exactly what they were trying to accomplish. They were using their grandchildren to get on my good side, which was not going to work. I told them it was very spineless of them to try to use their children to gain access to me. It's simply unethical, and they began defending themselves, claiming that that was not what they were trying to accomplish. They had just brought their children along because they wanted to meet me. We ended up arguing because it was obvious that this was not genuine. They only wanted my money, which is why they were desperately trying to get me to give them another chance. I saw right through them, and no matter how much they insisted, I told them it was too little. Too late. I fell in love with my grandchildren right away. They are all adorable, and I wish we had met under different circumstances. However, this is something their parents are to blame for. Anyway, after the argument, they insisted that I at least listen to them and let them tell me about their plan, for which they needed my money. But I told them I was not interested. Even when they were arguing, they sounded frustrated, and when I told them I was not interested, Ethan lost his cool and began yelling at me. The kids began crying because he was being quite vicious. So I started trying to console the kids while they were arguing with me, and it was so infuriating that at one point, I told them that if they didn't want me to call security and have them thrown out of the building, they should do it themselves instead of forcing me to do it because I was sick of them. I meant business. They must have realized this, as they eventually left after telling me that I was completely heartless and that my ego would bring me down. But it didn't matter to me. I just wanted to go home and rest, so that is what I did. It's been 24 hours since then, and I still haven't unblocked them, and I don't plan on doing so, especially after what happened yesterday. I don't think I have to. I am done. Update 3. Hello, it's been 3 days since I last saw my children. I obviously haven't unblocked them, but they continue to try to contact me. Earlier today they sent me an email from a new address, apologizing for everything that happened recently. They explained that this was not how they had expected things to go, but they understood why I was upset with them. They were initially annoyed by my behavior, despite their efforts to make things right with me. However, after much thought, they realized that they deserved it. They also confirmed what I already knew. Everything I'd heard about them was true. And it wasn't just gossip. They were surprised when I accused them of choosing their stepfather over me solely for the financial security he could provide. They hadn't expected it and were slightly offended. But in the end, it was true, and they couldn't do much to change it. But now they realized that by looking out for themselves, they had become extremely selfish. And I deserved better. At this point, I had every right to shut them out. But all they asked was that I not do it to the kids. They also told me about their plan. They were actually going to ask me to invest in the business they were starting together. Obviously, they cannot prevent their stepfather from selling his company. It is entirely his decision as the primary owner. But they were now going solo and didn't want to jeopardize their own finances, so we were considering bringing on a couple of investors. Their first thought had to be me, as they were not getting along with their stepfather right now. After much deliberation, they realized that they had been selfish once again, attempting to entice me as an investor while never truly apologizing for everything they had done previously. So they sent me this email to apologize and tell me that if I wanted to meet my grandchildren, I could call them at any time and they would come. They didn't even want me to invest in their company anymore. It was entirely my decision. After reading that email, I wasn't sure what to do because it appeared to be genuine. But then again, I've been played for a fool before, and I don't want that to happen again. However, I do want to develop a relationship with my grandchildren, so I guess I'll have to think about it, and whatever I decide, I'll post it here after some time. For the time being, however, I simply want to take a break from everything, so I will not be posting as frequently for the next few days, if not weeks. Update 4. Hey, so I gave it a lot of thought, and now that it's been nearly 2 months since they last contacted me, I decided to try to build a relationship with my grandchildren at the very least. I know it will take a long time for me to reconnect with my children, but not with my grandchildren. I am already 58. I'm not getting any younger, and I don't want to waste any time or opportunities I have to spend with my family, no matter how limited. Furthermore, my grandchildren have grown significantly without knowing their biological and real grandfather. So a few days ago, I finally responded to my children via that email address, telling them that I would be delighted to welcome them, their spouses, and grandchildren for dinner at my house this weekend. But in the same email, I made it clear that I would not be investing in their company. If they expected me to assist them financially at any time, they could forget about it, and if that meant they wouldn't be willing to visit me, that was fine with me as well. I just wanted to make it very clear to them that I had boundaries and would not allow them to cross them. The tone of my email and the later part had been quite stern, so I hadn't expected them to respond the same day, but they did. They informed me that they did not expect or want me to invest in their business. They didn't deserve it, but they wanted me to be able to bond with my grandchildren. So they gladly accepted my dinner invitation. So they ended up coming over for dinner yesterday, And we had a good time. Their spouses are very nice people, and they all apologized to me for everything that had happened in the past, and they said they were looking forward to starting over. And I am too. I'd really like to start a family because it can be lonely, and I'll be retiring soon. So I suppose now is as good a time and opportunity as any to fix things. I'm overjoyed that my children finally decided to reach out to me and do the right thing. Hopefully things will improve for us in the future. Fooled my cheating wife into thinking I was unfaithful, then ghosted her on Christmas Day after meticulously planning a year-long revenge. Here's the backstory. My future ex-wife is my high school sweetheart. We started dating in 1992, when we were both 17. We're both 45 and have been together since. She is the only woman I've ever been with in my life. We married 5 years later, at the age of 22, right out of college. A year later, we welcomed our first 2 children, both boys who are now 22 and 17. I gave her 23 years, built her a home, and worked tirelessly to provide her the life she desired. Sure, we had our issues, but what marriage doesn't? Even in the darkest of situations, we found a way to persevere and emerge stronger, making the revelation of her affair all the more startling. Flashback to March 2020. I had a feeling something wasn't right. We had been in a funk for approximately 2 months before. I was still unable to move while recovering from reconstructive knee surgery after tearing my ACL in the fall of 2019. At the time, my knee had only around 55% range of motion, which hindered my ability to conduct a variety of household tasks. I was out on workers' compensation because I was injured on the job, so I couldn't do my usual housework. My sons did their best, but duties that only I could do had to be postponed, or my wife had to take them on, which she detested. Things also came to a standstill in the bedroom. It had already slowed down before my crash, but in my current state, it came to a complete stop. During these months, Sue, we'll call her that, spent more time after work mingling with co-workers. From November 2019 until March 2020, it was a reoccurring event for her. Naturally, I rejected it. I'd had no reason to be concerned or wary of her over the previous 23 years. She had her friends, I had mine, and we had mutual pals. I could hang out with my friends all the time without issue. Everything was above board. However, in January of that year, I started to notice something unusual. Sue was growing increasingly distant. Sure, we were in a funk, but she had never denied me affection until that time. The usual hugs and kisses came to a stop. Her phone, which had previously been nearly tethered to her hand, was now secure. She was becoming more private, despite the fact that she was frequently sharing DIY ideas, recipes and memes with me. Her interactions with me became more snippy, as if she couldn't be bothered. So we're now in March. COVID has arrived, and New York City is under lockdown. Our chosen vocations are essential, thus neither of us had to work from home. I had just been cleared to return to work after being out for 5 months and I was eager to go back to it. 5 months of sitting on my ass, rehabbing my knee and being unable to do physical things drove me insane. For context, I adore physical activities. I'm an active martial artist who goes to the gym 4 days a week, in addition to all of the housework I handle. Within a week or two of the lockout, my soon-to-be ex-wife informed me that she would need to resume working extra hours. I didn't think much of it because of her profession. I expected it to be every other day, but it was every day, for more than an hour or two. She'd get home 3 or more hours later, shower, spend some time with me and our 17-year-old son, our 22-year-old was staying with his girlfriend across town, and then go straight to bed. As my knee recovered more movement, we continued our intimacy, but as one might anticipate, she was not intellectually or emotionally present as I quickly noticed. By early April the picture was getting clearer for me. All of the signs led to her having an affair. That was the moment I realized I needed answers. I scoured the internet for indicators of adultery in a partner and she checked almost every box. My search query grew to how do I find proof? I started with her social media, looking over her Facebook posts from several months ago. It was the usual, images of us and our sons, some with her friends, and some from her nights out with coworkers. These images included a mix of her closest coworkers and a few folks I had never met. But one thing stood out. Practically every picture featured the same guy. Every photograph he appeared in showed him standing uncomfortably close to her, his arm on her shoulder or his hand on her lower back. Far too close for a guy I'd never met. Needless to say, that left a nasty taste in my mouth, but it was far from the worst of it. The worst part was realizing he was her Facebook friend and Instagram following. So naturally, I searched for his Facebook account, only to discover that I had been barred. Why the hell was I unable to view this guy's Facebook profile when he was friends with her? At this point, I was in full Batman detective mode. I wasn't even attempting to deny it. I knew she was cheating on me with this man. My goal became to learn how long it had been going on. That was exactly what I did in April and May. Until then, I had no idea how much data could be pulled from phone records, text messages and email archives. We have a family cell phone contract, so I had access to a significant amount of data. My soon-to-be ex-wife's data history revealed that the two most common phone numbers she used between October 2019 and April 2020 were mine and one I had never seen before. Can you guess whose number it was? A quick Google search revealed that the individual in the photographs was the identical one who had blocked me on Facebook. We'll just name him P since that's who he is. The picture is clearer at this point, but many of their discussions and texts were disjointed, so she deleted a big number of them. I knew she was cheating on me with this person. But the statistics didn't prove it. I needed more evidence. At this point, I told my best friend Oz what I had discovered. He asked if I had questioned her with facts. I said no because I felt it wasn't enough. That's when he told me of an app I might use to track her communications in real time. I won't mention the name here because of the rules, but I installed it, linked it to our data plan, and waited. Within days, I saw it. A text exchange between the two of them, discussing how much fun they had the night before and making plans to do it again that weekend. Boom. Gut punch. To say I was devastated is an understatement. I suppose that was my D-Day. For the next 2 days, I was completely broken. I purposefully distanced myself from her. During the 2 days after D-Day, she noticed something was wrong. She tried to console me and ask what was wrong, but I ignored her and walked away. I couldn't even look at her. This woman to whom I had given 23 years of my life, everything I could as a husband, and she had left our marriage for a man barely 5 years older than our eldest child. By the 3rd day, I was no longer depressed, but enraged. I emailed Oz to inform him that my suspicions were confirmed. He asked if I confronted her and I responded no. I sought retaliation. I didn't just want to divorce her, I wanted to destroy her. I planned to undermine her life and ruin her. It would take some time, but I had a plan. In my studies and research on infidelity, I came across a statement that struck a chord with me. The enemy of infidelity is unpredictability. That was going to be the core of my strategy. I meant to make her life hell on wheels while quietly planning my escape. So it's early June and I still have the app installed. Almost every night I gather as much data as possible. I see their back and forth texts. They talk like they're in a full-fledged relationship, sexting, flirty romantic things, nudes, the works. At that point, I stopped looking at anything and focused solely on gathering information and cataloging everything on my personal server. Meanwhile, I began engaging in odd behaviors. I began leaving at irregular hours and arriving home much later than she did. I spent more time on my phone than usual while with her, and when she asked what I was doing, I just replied, "Just stuff," and put it away. I also changed the login credentials for everything so she couldn't get into any of my stuff. Throughout our marriage, we had never kept anything from one another. However, about the time I believe her romance started, she changed her Facebook and phone passwords, blaming recent security breaches. Yeah, that's an excellent reason to conceal an affair from your husband. I notified Oz about my plans, as well as my older sister and 2 other close friends. These are the people I trust with my life, and I have sworn them to secrecy. To clarify, Oz and I have been friends since we were children. We've known Joey and Na, our other 2 friends, since high school. Keep Na in mind, she will have a role later on. In July, my soon-to-be ex-wife was absolutely paranoid. She was texting and calling me more frequently, asking whether I'd be home when she got back, when I was coming home, what I was doing and so on. I could see the seed I planted in her mind a month ago starting to sprout, notably in her interactions with P. She was confiding in him, expressing her worries and perplexity, and warning him that I was becoming cold and distant. This woman has a lot of nerve. During these interactions with P, she even suggested that they stop meeting at our house since she wasn't sure if I'd just show up. Confirming of course that she had brought this guy into my home. Thanks, Sue. P asked her in that conversation if she was afraid I was cheating on her, which irritated her. I can't tell you how much pleasure and laughter I had from reading that exchange, my cheating wife arguing with her affair partner about whether she was angry at her husband for perhaps cheating on her. Oh, how ironic. Please bear in mind that I was not hooking up with anyone. When I left the house, I was usually at Oz's or Joey's, drinking, watching fights and socializing with my brothers. Or I was at my big sister's house, hanging out with her and my brother-in-law, who is like an older brother to me. My sister is 52, and her husband is 58. I had told them about my soon-to-be ex-wife's infidelity, but not about my plan. I couldn't risk it because my brother-in-law is a bit of a blabbermouth. Moving forward to October, things started to heat up. Sue was completely aware that I was intentionally drifting away from her after 3 months of my false romance. I hadn't touched her once between the day I carried out my plan and the day she confronted me. October 20th, 2020. No embraces, kisses, or attempts to initiate intimacy, none. Not that she needed it. She still got it from P, whether at his place or in a hotel. That afternoon she called me at work, which was not unusual before anything began, but it hadn't happened in a while. She implored me to come home immediately from work, saying she had something essential to tell me. I won't lie, I partly expected her to admit her infidelity. However, she didn't. Instead, I returned home and asked her whether I was furious with her. The nerve. She commented that I'd spent much too much time away from home, hadn't shown her any affection, and that our intimacy had faded. She expressed fear that I was driving her away because of my animosity for how she treated me when I was rehabbing my knee. Then came the punchline. She gasped and asked whether I was cheating on her. Folks, I fell to the floor laughing hysterically. And by hysterically, I mean like the Joker laughing so hard. On the surface, it appeared to her that I was laughing at the prospect of being unfaithful, but I was actually laughing at the irony of the circumstances. I was on the floor for over 2 minutes, weeping and banging my fists in hysterics before I could calm myself and react. I sat up, looked her in the eyes for the first time in months, shook my head and did not speak. I got up, brushed myself off, kissed the top of her head and started settling in for the night. Later that night, as I was in my office, I wanted to see what she was messaging P about what had just happened. I opened the app, and sure enough, they were texting in real time. She told P, "I know he's cheating on me. I questioned him tonight and he simply laughed in my face. He collapsed on the floor and laughed for almost 5 minutes. It did not take 5 minutes. He no longer cares about my feelings. I'm not sure how or why, but he's left. I realize I've lost him. This is karma, and I know it." The smile I had on my face while reading must have looked like the Cheshire Cat. Her heart was breaking. P tried to console her, telling her that if I cared enough about her, she wouldn't have had to turn to him for what I wasn't giving her. Her statements, however, suggested that she was now having doubts. She had the audacity to quit our marriage because I was unable to perform my duties as a husband due to a real injury, and she pursued the affair for approximately a year. But was the thought of losing me to another woman enough to make her reconsider? What a weakling. Throughout this, I was also implementing the second component of my strategy, getting my finances in order. In September, I met with a family attorney to start the divorce process. With the material I had gathered up to that point, I was convinced I could nail her to the wall in a divorce case, especially because New York is an at-fault state. My lawyer advised me to prepare all of my accounts in anticipation of the approaching asset division. I went a step further, secretly removing all of my funds from our joint account and deposited them into my own. As part of the second phase, I began searching for an apartment. Now it's November, and my behavior hasn't changed. In fact, I have turned it up. This is when my friend Na enters the picture. Na and Sue were never close. I met Na during my freshman year of high school, 2 years before meeting Sue. Sue saw Na as a threat, even though she was my closest female friend. Sue always gave Na an implied "I don't trust her" vibe. Sue never addressed it directly, but it was obvious to everyone paying attention. Na, on the other hand, felt no affection for Sue. Na pointed out early in my relationship with Sue that she was imposing herself on our social circle, but I did not do the same for Sue's friends. That infuriated Na since she knew why Sue was doing it. Sue still doesn't have any male friends in her circle, save for P, but Na is the only female in mine. Na had been kept overseas because of the epidemic before returning to New York City on November 3rd. Oz, Joey and I decided to celebrate her return by hosting a modest dinner and drinks party at Joey's house. There were just 5 of us: Oz, Joey, Joey's wife, Na's sister, Na, and me. We followed the CDC's guidelines because we take COVID seriously. Na, being the mastermind that she is, concocted a sinister scheme to enrage Sue. She suggested we take some photos of Sue and P, similar to those I found months ago, and post them on Facebook. This is precisely what we did. Sue learned about it on the 5th, when a few friends viewed my updates and saw how uncomfortably close Na and I appeared in the images. Sue was perplexed by this, especially because she still suspected I was cheating. I'm almost convinced she wanted to accuse Na, but she knew Na had been in Europe for the majority of the year. Still, it didn't stop her from attempting to dress me down that night since, as she described it, I was handsy in the pictures. I recognized this as a good opportunity to deliver the opening jab for my knockout punch. I inquired, "So how about the images of you and P from last year?" He was really handsy in them, but did you notice how upset I was about it? Deer in headlights. It was the first time I'd mentioned the guy's name in all of this. The hamster wheel in her head began to whirl in real time as she struggled to understand those photographs. She had no idea I had seen them up until that time. That's how rarely I use Facebook. When I do, it's like an event for others, which is why the images with Nina drew so much attention in our networks. She explained them away. He's like that with everyone. He's just a very friendly guy. I get how it appears, but there is nothing there. I am sorry if the photographs offended you. I'll erase them. No, the photographs were not the cause of my problems. The thought of you banging this guy for a year while lying to me about working extra hours and hanging out with friends has destroyed me. However, as Lieutenant Worf from Star Trek TNG memorably stated, vengeance is a dish best served cold. Sue became overly attached and attentive to me following that night, which was frustrating. She'd want to begin warmth and closeness, but I'd stop her at every opportunity. I was constantly recording whatever she said to P. By this point I had gone entirely numb. Any motivation I had to save my marriage was gone. I checked out on the day I executed the first phase of my strategy. She was telling him that I had gotten worse, that she didn't know what to do and that she believed I detested her. I did. Then she dropped the bombshell. She announced she could no longer see P. Her guilt was intense, and she felt like punishment was strangling her. She couldn't risk losing me. She claimed to love P deeply, but she was still in love with me and sought to save her marriage before losing me. No, my sweetheart. You were about 8 months too late for that. P lost it, saying beautiful things like, "He doesn't love you the way I love you. You are making a mistake. You can't just dismiss me like that." That text chain was their last until around 3 weeks ago. Sue was in uncertainty for the rest of November and December, trying to figure out where my headspace was while also unsure whether I was being unfaithful. Meanwhile, P was constantly blowing up her phone. But she did not respond. I noticed her checking her phone regularly, but she quickly set it aside. Meanwhile, phase 2 of the plan was officially finished. The divorce papers were completed. I'd found a studio apartment in Co-op City, a neighborhood recognizable to New Yorkers, and signed a 2-year contract. All of my money was in my own account. I was ready to throw my haymaker. Now it is Thanksgiving. My oldest son and his girlfriend were throwing a modest reunion for our immediate families, which included my oldest, his girlfriend, her parents, she is an only child, myself, Sue, and our youngest. We had a great night. My oldest girlfriend is training to be a chef, and she did all of the cooking herself. Let me tell you, the chick can cook. To give the impression that nothing was wrong between Sue and me, I expressed affection for her several times that evening, including kisses on the cheek, charming small hugs, and wrapping my arms over her shoulders from behind. She was aware of and loved the gestures. Keep in mind that this was the first time I had touched her since kissing the top of her head the night she confronted me in October, roughly 2 months prior. I won't lie, I was horrified by it, but I had no choice. I could not jeopardize the plan. My distancing from her in front of our sons, my oldest's girlfriend, and her parents would raise alarms. My youngest elected to spend the night with his elder brother, so Sue and I returned home. On the drive home, she thanked me for being so nice to her and said, "I don't know what you're going through, baby, but I'm here for you." I had to stop myself from busting out laughing again and answered, "I know, I just need time." For the first time since spring, we had sex that evening. I thought, what the hell? With what I'm going to do, I might as well get some work done before eliminating her from my life. I won't get into specifics, but it wasn't love. When I finished, she was a ball of flesh laying there, trying to figure out which way the truck that had run her over had gone. There will be no cuddling or anything afterwards. To her amazement, I just got up, washed, and fell asleep in my office. However, I wore a condom for the first time in nearly 2 decades. She was perplexed, but she didn't ask questions. I had no intention of going raw on her, knowing she had done so with P for months. I awakened the next day and launched my handy surveillance program. For the first time in weeks, she responded to P. The dude went full Neela. He expressed his feelings for her, saying she was wasting her time trying to rekindle a dying flame in me, and that she had been in prison with me for 23 years and deserved to feel the love and affection of a man who adored her. Mind you, this guy is 27 years old, only 5 years older than our oldest son, and he was that asterisk hurled at a 45-year-old married mother of 2. What a fantastic high-quality guy she chose to destroy our marriage and the home we had built for ourselves. Isn't he a beautiful boy with a compassionate side? She responded by saying essentially the same thing she had when they last spoke. She loved him and enjoyed their time together, but she couldn't lose me. She stated that I was still the love of her life, but there would always be a place in her heart for him, and they could be friends if he so wished. But their physical relationship had ended. He persuaded her to meet him one last time that week, and she consented. One more for the road, right? Who am I to say anything? That's just what I did to her the night before. Of course, I saved all of this in the archive I had built. On December 4th, the third and final phase of Operation Shinobi Ghost started. The divorce paperwork was completed, my new place of residence was established, and now I needed to gradually begin moving my possessions out of the house. But first, I needed to tell my boys. That Friday night, I invited my oldest to join me at my office. I laid everything out on the table, except for the specifics. Their mother had been cheating on me for about a year, and I was preparing to file for divorce. My 17-year-old was particularly touched by this since he had recently experienced his first taste of infidelity. His first girlfriend had cheated on him just 4 months previously. The notion of his own mother being capable of doing such a thing tore his heart apart for the second time. My oldest handled it much better and suggested that he take his brother in to live with him until everything was settled, which I agreed to. We packed some of his possessions and he inquired, "Are you going to be okay?" I replied, "Yes, youngster, I am going to be okay, as are you. We will be all right, I promise." Then they were gone. The most difficult part was now accomplished and it was time to arm the nuclear weapons. Over the next 2 weeks, Oz would help me remove some of my most sensitive belongings out of the house on a regular basis. I gave him a list of everything he needed to get while Sue and I were at work and left him with a spare key. Sue would not have realized anything was missing until someone told her. I also obtained a new phone and phone number, which I shared with everyone who needed to know: Oz, Joey, my boys, my big sister, and my mother. Meanwhile, I continued the deception with Sue and she had no idea. I gave her bits and pieces of affection to keep her off the trail while she was still in contact with P, not as much as before, but there was still an emotional connection. The fog was faint, but still there. All the while, I was gathering, and I mean everything. Every bit of data I'd saved since the beginning of the plan, call logs, texts, images, emails, everything, and printing it. I must have spent over $1,500 on Staples supplies like printer ink, paper and binders. I organized everything chronologically from the beginning of the affair to the end 2 weeks ago in December. 14 binders. I then placed each one in a box, gift-wrapped it, and addressed it to a variety of people, including my mother. My father died 7 years ago, her parents, her 2 sisters, her brother, her HR department. Did I mention P works for the same company, and there is an express rule against intercompany relationships because of the nature of what she does. Several of her friends, P and her parents. I took all of those parcels to the post office and got them shipped out on December 16th. Delivery is scheduled between December 22nd and December 24th. Perfect. So we are now on Christmas Eve. Sue returns home at the usual time, unsure if she has seen P. On the 18th, I stopped tracking her on the app, believing I'd gotten enough use out of it. As usual, she showers, spends time with me, and then I blow her out on the living room couch. Then she retires for the night. The final stage had arrived. The nuclear weapon I had been constructing since June was about to be fired. I arose in the middle of the night and wrapped one of the 3 remaining binders with the divorce papers glued to the inner cover, then placed it on my side of the bed with a Merry Christmas greeting. Next to it, I left my old phone and my lawyer's business card. I packed up the rest of my most important items, enough to fill 2 backpacks, and left the house I'd lived in for 23 years for the final time. That was a week ago, buddies. Sue believes that I have vanished, been shadowed, or ghosted. She is blocked on Facebook, but she hasn't blocked me, so I'm keeping track of the effects. It's simply great. My packages have arrived at their destinations and Sue has been crucified. Her younger sister dressed her completely down. Both of her parents have condemned her. My mother totally destroyed her, like holy crap. I know my mother is harsh, but what she called Sue was ridiculous. Sue has been feverishly trying to find out whether anyone knows where I am, but those who do are not saying anything. She's desperately attempting to contact me all over her Facebook feed, possibly because she knows I'm looking. But I won't say anything to her without my lawyer present. That'll be the next time I share oxygen with her. She can't use the narrative to make me appear bad because I've exposed her to everyone she cares about. According to a mutual acquaintance who works for the same company, she and P will be placed on administrative leave starting tomorrow. So, excellent news, she will most certainly be unemployed by 2021. Regarding the final 2 binders, one has been delivered to my lawyer as the final piece of evidence for my impending divorce. The last one I stored in my storage unit, to be burnt in Joey's fire pit after the divorce is finalized. Do I feel sad about it? Not in the least. For 23 years, I treated her well. I gave her the home she wanted, the family she sought, the life I thought we both deserved, and unconditional love. Never did I falter. Never did I stray. Never did I consider breaking my vows. When an issue developed that I suspected was interfering with our marriage, I addressed her and explained the situation, and we worked together to remedy it as best we could. She chose to seek solace in another man's bed rather than come to me and communicate her discontent with her current intimate situation. She decided to go out with a young punk who gave her tingles. So no, I'm not sorry for whatever I did to or for her. I do not care if she ends up in hell. The most I could lose is my home, a car, and possibly a few $100s each month in alimony. However, because the divorce is filed under the adultery statute in New York State, which is an at-fault state, this may be waived based on the overwhelming evidence I've shown. She's dead to me, and I'll never look back. Quick edit. Under certain circumstances, NYS is not fully to blame. Yet a divorce can be filed at fault, as my lawyer has advised me. I'll meet with the soon-to-be ex-wife and her lawyer tomorrow. I suppose I will just post an update here. Update. I deceived my unfaithful soon-to-be ex-wife into thinking I was cheating, then disappeared and served her on Christmas Day. Christmas Day was the first full day I spent in my new apartment. It's still a work in progress because I want to buy more stuff, but I consider it my home because I'll be here for at least 2 years. My boys and the eldest girlfriend came over and spent most of the day with me. The girlfriend brought over homemade snacks and made a great lunch. I got to sit down and talk to my sons in a way I hadn't in a long time, which was nice. My big sister also stopped over with additional snacks and hung out with us. It was the first time she had seen her nephews in nearly a year. Having all of them there was extremely beneficial to me because I feel I would have drunk myself to death if I had been alone. Everyone left about 8 p.m., and I decided to go hang out with Joey and his wife Claudia. I hung out with them for a few hours, had a few beers, and then headed home. The next important advancement happened last week, on December 29, 2020. Nina texted me about midday, asking whether I was busy that night. I of course was not, so we agreed to meet after I ended work. She showed up and we went to a diner near where I worked. We're doing indoor eating at 25% capacity in NYC thanks to the Rona, but there's rarely a wait because many of us don't eat out very much these days. Regardless, once we were seated and had ordered our dinner, Nina essentially laid all of her cards on the table. And I knew what was coming. She basically admitted that she had liked me since we were teenagers but never had the opportunity to tell me because Sue swooped in and took me before she could. For context, I've known Nina for 2 years longer than Sue. As previously said, she is the 4th point on my social square, with myself, Oz and Joey. We were the social misfits in high school, raver youngsters who didn't fit into any of the other cliques. Nina struggled with her weight and developed diabetes. She was the heavy-set goth lady who was really cool, but no man ever looked twice at her. However, we have always had chemistry. Nina now works as a personal trainer and yoga instructor. She was the ugly duckling that grew into a stunning swan, if I may say so. Long story short, we decided to start dating after my divorce was finalized, and yes, I slept with her that night. We went back to my new house and had a terrific time. Am I ashamed of having slept with her? Hell no. Nina has been a more valuable friend to me than Sue ever was. That's not to say Sue wasn't my best friend, but Nina has always been there for me over the nearly 25 years I've known her, even standing back from her own feelings to allow me to pursue and eventually create a relationship with Sue. That moved me on a level I did not expect. That amount of selflessness for another person is the essence of true love. I know it sounds like I'm just convincing myself that sleeping with her was the right decision, but it was. And I aim to devote my complete attention to discovering what lies ahead for Nina and me. On to yesterday. Yesterday, I met with my wife and her lawyer to talk about our divorce. It's been 2 weeks since I ghosted my soon-to-be ex-wife. This past Monday, I received a phone call alerting me that Sue's attorney had set a conference with us to discuss the terms of divorce for January 6, 2021, which was yesterday. I met with my lawyer on Tuesday morning to discuss the terms I wanted. Sue filed for an uncontested divorce due to spousal neglect. My terms include a comprehensive distribution of assets, and I will sell her half of the house ownership. She may keep it. We keep our cars in good working order. I keep my Poconos cabin, and under the pretense of marital neglect, she receives no spousal support from me. My 17-year-old son, whom I will refer to as 17 inches from now on, is free to choose who he wants to live with following the divorce, which will most likely be me. So on Wednesday, I arrived at my lawyer's office dressed as Johnny Cash. My wife and her attorney were there, and she looked like a wreck, barely holding it together. I gave her a stern look. I won't burden you with legal language, but her lawyer proposed terms of reconciliation. I dismissed them almost as soon as she finished explaining the contents of the request. Long story short, we agreed on a formal separation that would result in an uncontested divorce. The only modification is that I will pay her $653 per month in temporary spousal support to cover the cost of utilities until she finds work again. Yes, she was fired for messing about with P. He was also let go. I agreed to pay for up to a year after the finalization. I make enough money that it won't hurt me financially if she takes her time looking for a new job, and she has enough savings to last a long time. She is alone after a full calendar year since the divorce was finalized. A little price to pay for getting rid of her crooked ass. Things will take around 3 months to finish, so provided nothing goes wrong, I should be rid of her by early April. After the meeting, my lawyer said his goodbyes and promised to call me to keep me informed on the status of the filing. Sue followed me down the street pleading, "Can we talk?" I figured I'd provide her with at least that. She remained calm during the discussion but burst into tears outside, apologizing and explaining that she never intended for it to get as far as it did. She explained that she never anticipated falling in love with P, but when she felt I was cheating, she realized how terrible it was to betray her own marriage in this manner. She begged me if I could ever find it in my heart to forgive her, and if we could try again in a few years. She can't imagine her life without me. I advised her to start envisioning it right away because it would be the last time I spoke or saw her. I informed her that 17 inches is virtually a man and capable of making his own decisions about his future. I claim I gave her half of my life and all of my unconditional love, but she, in her own words, fell in love with another man. I will never forgive her. My feelings for her were progressively drained during the months she confided in and confessed her love to P, rather than approaching me and telling me she was dissatisfied with how things were going between us. I told her that I used to love who she was, but now I loathe who she is, and that if I never see her again, it will be too soon. Here we are, on the sidewalk in Midtown Manhattan, with her causing a commotion and weeping her eyes out. A few individuals strolled by, throwing sideways glances, but I didn't mind. I didn't want to disgrace her in public. I'd already wrecked her socially and professionally, but I needed to demonstrate my last ounce of affection for her. I concluded by telling her that I had no regrets about being her husband for the previous 23 years. I despised the fact that, after 23 years, she believed that the simplest solution was the best one. And, here's the kicker, I owe this one to the nice kids of __ on Reddit, because it came to me only seconds before I said it. For 23 years, I thought you were mine, but it turns out it was just my turn. Then I inserted my Raycons, turned around and walked away. Later that night, her father contacted me to apologize. He compliments me on always being a nice father to his daughter, admits he is ashamed of her, and claims he raised her better than she did. I won't lie, I'll miss the old man. My father died years ago. Therefore he has always been my default father figure. But after that call, I doubt I'll be able to communicate with anyone in her family. That night, I went on Facebook and symbolically changed my relationship status to divorced. Yay! It's not finished yet, but in my opinion, it is. As previously said, when I post on Facebook it is deemed an event, thus several people contacted me via Messenger with questions. I explained everything, including the fact that I filed for divorce from Sue earlier that day. Of course, Nina called, surprised that I had pulled the trigger so swiftly. Obviously when we spoke, I was already in the process, but she had no idea how far along it was. When I asked her if she could come over, she bolted. We knocked boots again, but this time she stayed the night. We slept in my bed and spoke till early in the morning, and I haven't felt this relieved and connected in a long time. Nina understands me, and I can't get enough of being with her. She's been the only thing on my mind since she confided in me. Yeah, I know some people may think I'm up for moving on so quickly, but as far as I'm concerned, my marriage ended the day P let Sue touch his pecker, so I'm ready to go on. So wonderful, that is it, that's the end. My divorce is in the works, and I am starting a relationship with Nina. I know I mentioned in a statement to someone that I'd probably never marry again, but that was before Nina told me about her emotions for me, and I can't deny that I feel the same way now. We're planning to take things slowly and won't make any announcements until Sue's divorce is legal and formal. I don't care what happens to Sue. She could move P into our old house for all I care. I'll receive my house payment in 4 quarterly installments throughout 2021, and aside from the $653 I'll deposit directly into her savings account each month, I'll never see or communicate with her again. I am eternally grateful to everyone who has expressed encouragement, support and gratitude. The soon-to-be ex-wife of 23 years attempted suicide last night. The hits keep coming. I've been sitting here for hours and wasn't sure where to put it, but this sub seemed appropriate. So if you're looking for some backstory, check out my post history. I'm not sure how the connection to other subscribers works here, but my previous 2 entries are shown in my profile. Here's a quick version. I found out that my wife of 23 years, 45F, was having an affair with a 27-year-old coworker. We have 2 sons, aged 22 and 17. I created a plan to severely disrupt her life, with the goal of convincing her that I was having an affair of my own. I continued the ruse for more than 4.5 months while gathering evidence of her infidelity, obtaining divorce papers and planning my exit strategy. Slowly moving my personal belongings from our house to a new apartment, getting a new phone and number, separating my half of our shared income from our joint account, and so on. On December 16, 2020, I gathered all of the evidence of her affair that I had compiled, printed it from beginning to end, filed it in 14 binders, packed 11 in gift-wrapped boxes, and mailed it all to the most important people in her life, as well as her HR department, with an ETA of December 22, 2020. On Christmas Eve, while she slept, I took one of the remaining 3 binders and repeated the process, but this time I glued the divorce notice to the inside cover and placed it on my side of the bed. Mind you, she had her affair there several times, along with my old phone and my lawyer's business card. I shadow ghosted her. Her life fell apart during the next 4 days. Her family had effectively excommunicated her. Her friends, who were uninformed of the affair, shunned her, and my mother reprimanded her, calling her the most vile and derogatory insults you could imagine. Her lover and she were both put on administrative leave and eventually fired. We had our divorce hearing last week and agreed on a formal separation that will result in an uncontested divorce, subject to a few requirements for transitional income because she is still unemployed. I'll pay for the utilities, $653 per month, until she finds a job or until 1 year after the divorce is finalized, which is expected in 3 months. She keeps her home, car, and half of the marital assets. I keep half of the assets, which include my car, motorcycle, boat and vacation house, a cabin in the Poconos. Following the hearing, we had one final conversation in which she attempted to excuse her infidelity and pushed me to give her another chance once the divorce was finalized. Of course, I said no, told her some harsh words, and walked away forever. This brings us to last night. Only my closest friends, 2 boys, elder sister and mother have my new contact information, and I have completely blocked my soon-to-be ex-wife from all social media platforms. She has no way to reach me since I left her on Christmas Eve, but several of our mutual acquaintances do. Last night, I was sitting at my apartment when I received a voice call notification on Messenger from one of those friends. She was one of the only people who didn't forsake Sue after the affair was uncovered. She did not waste time responding to my message. She informed me that she had gone to check on Sue, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and discovered her passed out in the bedroom, foaming at the mouth with 2 empty pill bottles beside her. Sue was in the intensive care unit, in critical but stable condition, and the doctor anticipated she'd recover. Sue had pleaded with me to come, and her parents and 2 sisters were also hospitalized. My guess is that they were notified after the hospital attempted to tell me, but Sue was still using my old phone number as her emergency contact. I merely told her friend, no. Sue is no longer my problem. And that she had clearly decided to take the easy way out rather than face the sorrow and misery of ending her 23-year marriage. I then told her friend that if Sue's family was present, they could help her pick up the pieces, but as far as I'm concerned, there is no Sue and I anymore. I ended the call. I slept on it for a few hours, and my sons called me this morning to find out what occurred. I answered yes, and I told them both that if they wanted to be there to support their mother, I wouldn't judge them for it. She is their mother after all. But I made it clear that I no longer cared what she did with or to herself. They were both taken aback by this, but they acknowledged my position. However, now that the news of her suicide attempt has spread, many of those who abandoned her are coming forward and telling me that I need to be there for her. That regardless of what she did to me, I should assist her in her time of need. I also discovered that her affair partner tried to pay her a visit this morning but was denied permission because he is not a family member. I am being pressed to go see her, but I no longer care about her. I haven't for a long time. I emotionally checked out during the process of collecting my revenge for her betrayal, and I still don't care what happened. Actually, it makes me dislike her even more. She is the one who was unfaithful. She is the one who, after a nearly year-long affair with a man barely 5 years older than our oldest child, decided it was worth jeopardizing 23 years of marriage. And now that she has to face the consequences of her actions, she adopts the most selfish approach. Even though she is expected to survive, she has managed to evoke quick sympathy from people who condemned her weeks ago. Meanwhile, I'm portrayed as the angry ex-husband who refuses to sympathize with her, at least by the bulk of her family. Her father, on the other hand, called me and supported my decision to stay away. I feel as if I never truly knew this woman. After 23 years, it has finally happened. Yes, I get that the way I ended things with her may have left her in a horrible emotional condition, but a whole new bag of worms has opened. Either she had a catastrophic mental breakdown and tried suicide, or she engaged in an extremely risky and deliberate ploy to regain favor with individuals who had only weeks before scolded her for abandoning me. She cheated on me and is now the victim? Sorry if this comes out as a rant, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around this. I want to be clear. I'm not going to visit Sue. She waived her right to my concern for her well-being the day she permitted P, my personal nickname for her partner, to touch her. This may come across as cruel, but despite my cool, calm and collected exterior throughout the event, my emotions remain raw. But I do not care about this woman. I haven't in a very long time. I am aware that I will be despised by a number of people here, but I do not mind. Think of me any way you choose. If you were in my position, you would interpret her actions very differently. Some of you will search through my post history to see what I did to her. You're going to infer that her suicide attempt was my fault. That tricking her into thinking I was cheating on her when she was actually cheating on me, and then destroying her socially and professionally, was the catalyst for her breakdown. Maybe it was. Maybe I am a callous sociopath. However, as Arthur Fleck famously said, you get what you quite deserve. I devoted half of my life to this woman, doing all in my ability to be the finest husband possible. She admitted that I had no influence over her decision to leave our marriage. She did it for herself. Her selfishness knows no bounds, and I'm relieved to be free of her. If that makes me a bad person because I refuse to visit her and never intend to engage with her again, so be it. I stick to my beliefs. She decided to deceive me. She decided to prioritize her needs over our marriage. So now it's my turn to prioritize myself above all else. I don't mind if she perishes in the depths of hell. Allow people to help her self-improvement. My dedication to her well-being ended when we signed the separation agreement. I simply needed to get this off my chest. If you're going to judge me for how I feel, save it. As I have indicated, despite 23 years and 2 children, I never fully knew this woman. I have no sympathy for her, and never will. Sue's father informed me that she had been transferred from the ICU to the mental health ward. The doctors are still keeping track of her mental health. She is alert and intelligent again, but definitely sleepy. Her father told me she asked if I might come to see her, but he declined. She turned off after that. He gently remarked that he would only provide additional information if I questioned, as he was aware of my mental state. I've also scheduled counseling for my son, who is 17 years old. His first consultation is this coming Monday. Update. The aftermath of my soon-to-be ex-wife's suicide attempt. I'm writing this as a form of therapy, a practical way to convey my ideas. Despite everything I had said in previous blogs and comments, I went to see Sue. She's been out of the hospital for 4 days, and believe it or not, Nina convinced me to see her. Nina explained that the only way I'd be able to let go of my dislike for Sue was to see her one more time in her fragile state. So about 6 p.m., I called Sue for the first time since serving her. Her greeting was not the happy and effervescent one I had grown accustomed to during the previous 2 decades. Her voice seemed harsh and faint. When she heard my voice, she burst into tears. It took her nearly 3 minutes to gather her composure and speak again. Before she could say anything, I told her I'd be there by 8 p.m., and she agreed. My prior home is around an hour to an hour and a half away from Co-op City, where I currently live. I grabbed a bite to eat at the neighborhood pizza and left. I arrived at 7:47 p.m., and she was already at the door when I drove into the driveway. As I neared, I realized the toll her actions had taken on her. She appeared noticeably thinner, the unhealthy kind of emaciated. Overall, she resembled the walking dead. The first thing she tried to do was come in for a hug, but I stopped her. She understood I wasn't there to console her and quickly backed off. We went inside and sat in the living room. Sue almost immediately told me that she wanted to be transparent about everything. She told me she couldn't live with her guilt over what she'd done to me and the boys. She entered a downward spiral of shame and misery after we signed the separation agreement, culminating in her suicide attempt. Her friend, who contacted me from the hospital, saw her behavior and started coming over to check on her. She stated that the doctors told her that if she hadn't been discovered 1 hour earlier, she would have survived. She stated that she had failed me as a wife. That falling for P was a mistake and that she had not backed out when she knew she was in too deep. She also apologized for sharing so much personal information about our marriage and speaking ill of me to him. She confessed she never imagined herself capable of doing such a thing. But she was. She thought she was doing the right thing, but when she discovered I was cheating, it hit her like a ton of bricks. The sensation of betrayal was intense, and she needed to leave as quickly as possible. However, it was definitely too late. She then asked when I had stopped caring. I told her the night she confronted me with such vehemence about my cheating, despite the fact that she had been sleeping with P for months. I lost all respect for her that night, which fueled my drive to follow out my plan. She told me that when she got up on Christmas morning and saw the gift I had left, she was overjoyed, until she opened it. When she realized what it was and how much I knew, she went wild and hasn't entered our bedroom since. She desperately tried to find out if anyone knew where I was, but when she went to Facebook to ask, she was scolded by friends and family for her actions. She wasn't sure how everyone knew so quickly. That's when I informed her about the remaining binders. Her shocked look was priceless. It dawned on her that I had orchestrated everything she had gone through. Her friends turning on her, her family humiliating her, and yes, even her job loss. It was all my fault. She simply fell silent and turned off after that. When I went to use the bathroom, everything was in disarray. The mirror was broken, her skincare supplies were all over the place, and the tub appeared to have not been cleaned since they took her to the hospital. When I returned to the living room, she put her face in her hands, crying. And truthfully, I felt nothing. There is no more anger, rage or sympathy. They say that apathy is the polar opposite of love, and as I looked at her, I felt exactly that. She looked up at me and murmured, "I messed up everything. I harmed us, and I don't know what to do. I can't do it by myself." I told her she had her family, the person who discovered her, and our sons, but not me. She would never do this again. I told her I came to give her closure after the pain she had put herself through, but as I walked out that door, I never looked back. P showed up shortly after. She informed me that he contacted her 2 days earlier. They spoke for a few hours, and she advised him to move on with his life, meet a younger woman and forget about her. Sue spent the remainder of the conversation apologizing for betraying me and asking, "Is this really the end?" Without hesitation, I looked her in the eyes and said, "Yes." It had ended long before I served the divorce papers on Christmas. I assumed it was my indication to leave. There were no further words exchanged since what else could be said. I left her on the couch, closed the door behind me, got in my car and drove home. It's 2:56 a.m. when I write this. I needed to convey it while it was still fresh in my mind. This concludes the Sue saga. My 17-year-old son and I have both been booked for counseling in the coming weeks. Nina and I are still going strong, sticking to our policy of keeping things quiet until my divorce is official. I'm remaining active and motivated, looking forward to a future with a woman I know will cherish and honor me, as she has for decades. It's time for me to focus on the life ahead of me. So, this is probably my last post for a while. Perhaps I'll publish an update after the divorce is official. Thank you to everyone who has supported me and wished me success. To everyone who cheered my retribution plan, I honestly wish it hadn't happened. But if I had to do it again, I wouldn't change anything. Except maybe doing more to P than just firing him. And to the one person who attacked me, claiming I deserved it since I raped my wife, you are insane and, yeah, it's time to get my green ass out of here. Update. Where are things and where are they going? It's been just over 2 months since I served my wife's divorce papers, and a month since my previous update, which I said would most likely be my last. But a lot has transpired since that post, and after returning to this account and seeing hundreds of messages and responses, I decided to share what's going on. Before I continue, I'd like to convey my heartfelt appreciation for all of your compassion and support throughout my journey. I am grateful for all of the affection I've received on Reddit and from my family. First, I'd like to address a matter about which many people have expressed concern. My youngest son, who is 17 years old. He began individual counseling only a few days after my last post. I accompanied him to his first 2 sessions, and he has been going on his own ever since. He attends twice a week and it's really helped him. He is doing okay overall, but his trust in relationships has been completely shattered. The long-term consequences of his own adultery, combined with dealing with his mother's cheating and attempted suicide, have left a deep mark that I feel will take decades to heal. I also realized that his experience was worse than he had previously claimed. He discovered his ex-girlfriend making out with someone he thought was a friend, but who had only approached him to get to her. He never told me about this aspect of his breakup. My heart aches for my son, who has had to go through this at such a crucial point in his growth. You do everything you can to protect your children, but life ultimately says, no. He's decided to stay with IC for the long term, and I've told him that if he ever needs to talk to me about anything, nothing is off limits. Next up is my own IC. If you've read most of my articles, you'll see that I have an anger issue, which is odd given that I've always been a reserved and controlled man. But this entire event has certainly awakened a sleeping dragon in me, and it is a true fire breather. I have talked about everything with my therapist, and I mean everything. When I told him what I did to my ex, he was both amazed and appalled, not what I had expected. Apparently, when prodded, I exhibit psychopathic tendencies, which is not surprising given what I have done. My sessions are more structured than dramatic, as I process all that is going on in my mind concerning my marriage's dissolution and attempt to achieve balance. Now, for the elephant in the room, Nina. I'm not sure where I would be without this woman. I never anticipated having such a loving, understanding and nurturing woman by my side to support me through this. We are still going strong, and despite our best efforts to keep our relationship quiet, it is very open within our circle. She just understands me, and has since we were teenagers. Because she understands the misery of having the person you've spent your entire life with cheat on you, she does everything she can to help me cope with my emotions. We alternated between staying in her place and mine. Her 5-year-old opposed the concept of living together. My flat is too small for 3 people and my lease is until 2022. So, for the time being, we'll continue to split time. Nina comes to my house when her kid is with her father and I come to hers when she has her daughter. Speaking of her daughter, I admire her and she has taken a liking to me. I wish I could find the words to describe how important Nina has been to me throughout everything. If you haven't read my previous entries, Nina has secretly loved me since we were sophomores in high school, but she was an ugly duckling who believed she had no chance with me. She deliberately sat by and watched me pursue, date and marry my soon-to-be ex-wife Sue, knowing how she felt. She kept this a secret for nearly 25 years, until a week after my divorce hearing, when we met for dinner and she revealed everything. I feel privileged to have her in my life. We are constantly discussing what the future holds for us. We are not getting married since we have both been burned by marriage, but we have discussed having a civil partnership. We'll probably wait a while before heading down that path, but it's evident that we're destined to be together. Finally, there is Sue, the soon-to-be ex-wife. There isn't much to tell. I haven't spoken to her since her attempted suicide. I have no idea what she is doing and don't want to know. I consider her dead. That is pretty much all. Life goes on. It's March 2nd as I type this, so only 1 month till the divorce is final. By this time next month, I'll be a free man, and I'm counting down the days until I can begin the next chapter in my life. To clarify, I made a mistake when I mentioned being clinically diagnosed as a psychopath. My therapist indicated I have sociopathic tendencies when provoked, so I assumed it was a professional diagnosis. It wasn't, It was just his professional observation. Furthermore, my 22-year-old son had no intention of causing harm to P. He expressed what he did out of wrath. Update, the end and farewell. Sue became my ex-wife on April 13th, exactly 1 month ago. My lawyer first told me that it would go through on the 18th, but because of the reduction of COVID cases here in NYC, it was pushed through a few days earlier. My lawyer, Jeff, called me on April 12th and asked me to come see him the next day. When I did, he handed me the finalization notification and shook my hand. I couldn't leave it at that, so I went in, hugged him, and thanked him for everything he had done for me. On the way home, all I could think about was watching mental movies of everything from the preceding 24 years of my life. All the memories. All the history. When I walked into my flat, it happened. When I hit the floor, all of the emotions that had been bottled up inside me came out. I hadn't sobbed like that in years, and it wasn't a sad cry by any means. My spirit felt as if it had been set free from the lowest, darkest depths. My first call that night was at 22. I kept it brief and nice, implying that it was official and that his mother and I were no longer married as of that day. He asked how I was feeling. I'm sure he could hear my voice that I had been crying, and I answered I was okay. Then 17 got on the phone and we talked for almost 90 minutes. 22 and his fiancée have done a fantastic job of caring for him, and he, like me, continues to receive treatment. I won't go into detail about what we discussed, but I will say that there is still a lot of work to be done, especially with his perspective on relationships. Nina came to see me later that night as she often did, and I certainly told her the news. She simply wrapped her arms around my waist and embraced me tightly. And I cried again. Nina reassured me. No matter what, I will never betray you, and I love you with all my heart. I know it is all true. I may face some criticism for saying this, but I do not regret the life I built with Sue. Despite everything, she gave me 2 strong sons. But it is clear today that I chose the wrong woman. Nina has given so much in the previous 4.5 months while asking for almost little in return. She only requests that I be there for her. I don't want to go on about her, but she's my actual hero. There have also been a few unexpected events since the divorce was finalized. For example, P approached me immediately. Yes, he messaged me on Reddit. It turns out he saw the story when it went viral on YouTube and immediately recognized it as about him. Before anyone asks, I will not reveal his Reddit username. I think I've made the kids suffer enough. The first thing he did was apologize for his involvement in all of this. He informed me what the results of the binder I sent to his mother were. Essentially, he has been excommunicated by his family. His mother, as I discovered while plotting my retribution, is a devout Catholic woman, the in church 3 days a week, no mea patria spiritus sancti, type of devout. So her views on marriage are sacrosanct, and learning that her son had recently ended a nearly 25-year marriage sent her into a frenzy. She fired him the same day, and he was fired within a week of his employer receiving the binder I provided. He has been couch surfing and seeking a new job ever since. He claimed he wanted to contact me on social media, all the places he blocked me while screwing Sue, but admits he was afraid because, in his words, if I was able to find him before, I could find him again. I admit that I could have totally devastated this youngster, but I chose not to. I asked when he last saw Sue and he said he hadn't in months. Sue told him to forget about her and go on with his life the last time he spoke with her, much like she told me the last time I spoke with her. So she was not lying about it. I asked the boy some additional questions, and he was surprisingly forthcoming. I assume he was seeking some type of restitution for the havoc he had created himself. Much of what he said was consistent with what I had learnt from the text material I got. I didn't say anything. I just asked, and he responded. The talk went on for around 20 minutes until he apologized again. That's when I hit him with this. Copy and paste the following from the conversation. You're a 27-year-old man who must spend the rest of his life knowing that your own mother despises you for ending a marriage that lasted nearly as long as you've been alive. I understand you messaged me because karma is bugging you, but I will not bring you closure. When I was 27, I was building a legacy. You are currently a homeless, unemployed homewrecker. If you are intelligent, you will gain from this lecture. If you are not, you will be a disaster until you reach my age, assuming you live that long. I wish you luck, but you don't need it. You should get your act together. I completed our talk and blocked him. Clearly, this was not the kind of closure he was looking for. And I could have been much more harsh, but I believe those statements are enough to haunt him. The next significant event is Nina's transition into Mrs. Frog on May 4, 2021. Over the last 2 months, we've had extensive discussions about where we want to go. Nina made it abundantly clear that she has no intention of ever being with anyone other than me, and she desires my namesake. She wants to be my wife and has asked me to adopt Anna, her daughter. I've said it before, I adore this kid. She's 6 years old now, her birthday was last month, and she idolizes me. I am the first father figure she has known since her biological father abandoned her when she was 4. Nina has made it a point not to introduce Anna to any man she has been involved with unless they have made a long-term commitment. Needless to say, I have perseverance and experience raising children. Anna and 17 complement each other perfectly. The big brother-little sister dynamic between them is both lovely and sweet. 17 has formed a deep bond to Anna and appreciates it. I told my therapist about it, and he said that's a positive sign. 17 sees the innocence he wishes to preserve in Anna, despite the fact that his own innocence has been shattered. So last Monday, we decided to go to City Hall and pull the trigger. It took 24 hours to receive the marriage license, and the outcome was the most unremarkable ever envisioned. I addressed it as if no one had seen it coming, and Big Sis said, now placing bets on when the now expecting post goes up. We thought we were keeping our relationship a secret for months, but practically everyone figured it out. So great. That was hilarious. Some might believe it was too soon, and I've mentioned in earlier remarks that I will never marry again. However, this occurred before Nina and I developed a meaningful relationship. This woman has declared her undying and unconditional love for me. She has cried in my arms, telling me how happy she is and how she never thought she'd be able to be with me. She's gone into great detail about her feelings for me throughout the last 25 years, and how even while married, she mourned the idea that Sue won. I had no idea how deep that rabbit hole was. She even said that she had pondered having an affair with me, but she was never that type of person. Even still, throughout all the years I've known her, she's given me so much while expecting so little in return. Even the woman I married and had 2 children with has never shown me as much affection as Nina does. I'd be silly not to tell her my name. So now she has it, and we are beginning the paperwork for me to adopt Anna. Finally there's Sue. I haven't spoken with her since my last visit to our marital home 4 months ago, although mutual friends, the ones who remain, send me updates on a daily basis. I learnt from one of those acquaintances, a realtor, that she sold the house and was recruited as a clerical assistant at his company. In doing so, he canceled the assistance payments I was required to make due to her unemployment. She currently lives in a little apartment near his office, which he also helped build. She is still functional, but she is a shadow of the woman she once was. She has acquired little weight and keeps to herself. She comes in, does her work, and rarely interacts with anyone other than him. Most likely since her work-related socializing is where it all started. The last time I heard from her was at the end of March, when I thanked him for watching out for her but advised him that I didn't need any further information. She's no longer my problem. I'm almost certain she knows about Nina and myself, as numerous of our surviving common friends have mentioned us. With 17 just a year away from becoming a legal adult, I have no need to speak with her again, and I won't. And that's it. My journey through betrayal, vengeance, attempted suicide, and mental pain is complete. I'll answer questions and leave a few remarks, but after that, I'm returning to the swamp to live with my new frog bride and her tiny tadpole. Thank you to the thousands of people who have offered me advice, best wishes and compliments during this process. The opportunity to tell my story and help others dealing with the pain of infidelity has humbled and blessed me. I enjoy the new friends I've met on Reddit. I never imagined meeting such attractive people in a place where blatantly negative things might be spoken. Keep it green and pleasant. Reddit. Brother got my fiancée pregnant before our wedding. Now my family wants me to forgive them, but I told them to fuck off and moved away. This is going to be a long story, and it's just as crazy as it sounds. I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but there's a lot to cover here. I don't care if anyone believes this or not. It's so absurd that I need to vent. Also, I'm not going to sugarcoat anything. But I will omit any specifics that could identify me to anyone who is unfamiliar with the scenario. I'm 32 years old, and until a few months ago, I was engaged to my 5-year girlfriend. We'll call her Sarah. My younger brother Mike is 29 and has always been the golden kid in our family. To truly grasp the gravity of this betrayal and why it has hit me so hard, I need to give you some background on my family and how we arrived at this point. Growing up, Mike could do no wrong in our parents' eyes, whereas I was continually chastised and punished for minor infractions. This wasn't your average sibling rivalry or subtle favoritism, it was obvious and intense. Mike would break something and I would be accused. He'd start a fight, and I'd get grounded. If we both got straight A's, he'd get a new video game console, and I'd get a pat on the back and a reminder to keep it up. Our parents, Tom and Linda, were constantly making excuses for their actions. Mike's younger, he needs more attention, nor, you're the older one, you should know better. Nor, Mike's just more sensitive, we have to be careful with him. The relentless assault of false standards and gaslighting made me feel useless and despised in my own house. As we grew older, the preference became more evident. When I was accepted into a good college on a partial scholarship, my parents scarcely recognized it. However, when Mike opted to attend community college, they gave him a lavish celebration and purchased him a car to travel in. Never mind that I had been biking 5 miles each way to my part-time job for several years. I moved out as quickly as possible to avoid the toxic environment at home. I supported myself through college by working 2 jobs and taking out loans. Meanwhile, Mike dropped school after 1 semester, citing that college was not for him. Our parents wholeheartedly backed his decision, commending him for knowing himself and not conforming to societal expectations. They even financed his string of failed business enterprises over the following few years. Regardless of how much distance I tried to put between myself and my family, they always found a way to bring me back. Holiday dinners were a nightmare of subtle insults and not so subtle parallels. "Oh, you're still in that entry-level position? Well, Mike is considering establishing another business. He's very entrepreneurial." Never mind that I was establishing a secure profession while Mike depleted our parents' retirement money. Despite everything, I tried to keep my friendship with Mike. He was still my brother after all. However, it was always one-sided. I'd reach out and attempt to connect, but he'd either ignore me or find a way to make the conversation into a game he could win. If I was promoted, he would suddenly have a big opportunity coming up. If I started dating someone, he would inevitably be in a serious relationship. I met Sarah while trying to reunite with Mike. She was a friend of one of his short-lived girlfriends and we clicked immediately. Sarah was everything I wanted in a partner: brilliant, humorous, kind, and stunningly beautiful. We began dating, and for the first time in my life, I felt truly satisfied and valued. My folks, obviously, were not pleased. They made sarcastic remarks about Sarah being out of my league and asked what she saw in me. Mike, on the other hand, became quite interested in my life. He was always asking about Sarah, wanting to know everything about her. At the moment, I was just relieved that he seemed to care about things in my life. Looking back, I should have noticed the red flags. Sarah and I moved in together after a year of dating, and it was fantastic. We both had solid professions, traveled, and discussed the future. I began to believe that, just maybe, I could have the life I had always desired. A good profession, a loving partner, and perhaps children eventually. I proposed to Sarah on our 4th anniversary. It was nothing fancy, simply a simple supper at home and a moving speech. I was ecstatic when she said yes. We planned to have a long engagement and spend our time arranging the wedding. We weren't rushing, we had our entire lives ahead of us, or so I believed. When we told my family about our engagement, their emotions were diverse, to say the least. My mother put on a fake smile and remarked, "Oh, how nice," in a tone that implied it was anything but. My father grunted and murmured, "Good luck with that," before returning to the television. Mike, however, had the weirdest reaction. He congratulated us, but there was something strange about his smile, almost predatory. I dismissed it at the time, attributing it to my own fears. The following year was filled with wedding plans and job stress. Sarah and I were both working long hours at our jobs to save up for the wedding and a down payment on a home. We hadn't seen each other as much as we used to, but I assumed it was simply a phase. Every partnership goes through difficult times, right? Looking back, I should have seen the indications. Sarah grew distant, always on her phone, smiling at texts from people she swiftly dismissed as business friends. She began going out more with her companions, arriving home late and smelling of wine and cologne. But I fully trusted her. I never considered that she may be cheating, let alone with my own brother. Sarah began acting strangely around 4 months ago. She was moody, irritated, and always nauseous. I was excited by the possibility that she might be pregnant. We hadn't tried, but we had discussed the possibility of having children in the future. I began to plan how I would help her, thinking nursery colors and baby names. Then one night, she sat me down with tears in her eyes and delivered the bomb. She was pregnant, but it was not mine. I was stunned. We hadn't been intimate in a while due to our hectic schedules, but I never expected her to cheat on me. When I asked who the father was, she broke down and mumbled, "It's Mike." My entire universe came crashing down at that moment. Everything I thought I knew, everything I had based my existence on, came crumbling down. I could not breathe. I could not think. All I could feel was an overwhelming sense of betrayal and loss. Sarah attempted to explain, her words coming out quickly between sobbing. Apparently, it began during our engagement party. Mike had approached her and informed her that she was making a mistake by marrying me. He played on her insecurities, telling her she could do better and that he could provide her with everything I couldn't. It wasn't a one-time occurrence. They'd been having an affair for months. I kicked Sarah out that night. I couldn't bear to look at her or be in the same room with the lady who had deceived me so totally. She begged me to forgive her, explaining that it was a mistake and that she loved me. But all I could think of was how many times she had lied to my face and been with my brother while wearing the ring I had given her. After Sarah left, I contacted Mike. I can't recall what I said, it was all a swirl of wrath and pain. He initially tried to play it casual, claiming that it was merely a drunken mistake and had no meaning. But when I questioned him, he became defensive, saying, "Well, maybe if you'd been a better fiancé, she wouldn't have come to me." I saw red. I got into my car and headed to his apartment, determined to do something that would make him regret what he said. I'm not sure what I was planning to do, but when I arrived, our parents were already there. Mike apparently called them first, telling them a narrative about Sarah seducing him and how sorry he was. And you know what? They believed him. They always do. My mother immediately began lecturing me about forgiveness and family, while my father simply stood there with his arms crossed, looking disappointed in me, but not in his beloved Mike. I tried to explain what had actually happened, but they wouldn't listen. They kept telling me that I needed to forgive Mike and support Sarah throughout her pregnancy because family comes first. I lost it. Years of pent-up resentment and anger spilled forth. I told them exactly how I felt about their twisted sense of devotion, how they'd always favored Mike over me, and how they'd never taken my side or backed me. I told Mike that he was no longer my brother and that he had died. I told my parents they could have the son they'd always wanted because they didn't have me. I stormed off, ignoring their cries and pleads. I drove for hours with no destination in mind, only a want to be away from everything and everyone. When I eventually got home, I discovered dozens of missed calls and messages. Sarah begged for another opportunity, as Mike alternated between apologies and accusations. The majority, however, came from my parents, who demanded that I grow up and make amends. I ignored them all, rarely eating and sleeping. I called out of work, depleting all of my vacation days. I couldn't face anyone and couldn't handle the prospect of explaining what had happened. I just sat in my apartment, revisiting every detail of my relationship with Sarah and every interaction with Mike, trying to figure out where I went wrong. It has been 3 months now. I've relocated to a new apartment, changed my phone number and begun treatment to deal with all of this. But my family will not give up. Despite my efforts to cut off communication, they continue to intrude in my life. They've begun showing up at my office, attempting to ambush me and push a reconciliation. My mother confronts me in the parking lot, wailing about how I'm ripping the family apart. My father left harsh voicemails telling me to man up and forgive Mike. Mike himself has attempted to approach me several times, but I've managed to dodge him thus far. They've even dispatched flying monkeys disguised as extended family members to guilt-trip me into forgiving Mike. Aunts, uncles, and cousins I haven't spoken to in years are suddenly calling, telling me how important family is and how I should let bygones be bygones. It's as if they're in another reality where Mike and Sarah made a little mistake rather than a life-altering one. I received a message from Sarah yesterday. She is keeping the baby and intends to co-parent with Mike. And guess what? My parents are overjoyed to become grandparents, forgetting the circumstances and the harsh remarks they used to make when Sarah was with me. The letter was full of apologies and explanations, including how she and Mike discovered real love via this terrible scenario. She even had the nerve to suggest that she hoped we could all become friends eventually for the sake of the child. I am at my wit's end. Part of me wishes to sever ties altogether and start over somewhere else, perhaps moving to another state, changing my identity and creating a new life where no one knows about this mess. But another part of me is so outraged that I want to stay and fight, to show them how twisted up the situation is. I don't know what to do now. The treachery has had an impact on all aspects of my life. I cannot take being alone with my thoughts. I haven't even considered dating again. The idea of trusting someone like that scares me. I've also lost friends over this. Those who believe I should take the high road and reunite with my family. As if I'm terrible for refusing to play happy families with the people who have wounded me the most. The idea of Sarah and Mike raising a kid together, a child who should have been mine, is like a continual stab in my gut. I understand cognitively that the child is innocent in all of this. It is not the baby's fault that its parents are lying, cheating scumbags, but I can't bring myself to feel good about its existence. My parents have begun to discuss how I should be involved in the child's life and how I will become an uncle. The concept makes me feel physically ill. How can I look at this youngster and not recognize the ultimate emblem of my brother's betrayal? So, Reddit, I guess my question is, am I the idiot for refusing to forgive my brother and ex-fiancé? Am I wrong to want to lose relations with my family over this? Any help on how to proceed would be greatly appreciated, as I now feel like I'm drowning in a sea of treachery and gaslighting. I apologize for the lengthy post. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Writing all of this down has been cathartic in a way. I'm not sure what I hope to gain from sharing this: validation, guidance, or simply the opportunity to scream into the void and have someone, anybody, hear me. Edit. Holy God, this exploded up overnight. Thank you all for your help and advice. I'm astonished by the response, and it will take me some time to look through all of the comments. However, I wanted to answer a few typical questions. 1. Yes, I have consulted with a lawyer about getting a restraining order against my family. It is currently in progress. 2. I don't intend to have any contact with the baby. It's not the child's fault, but I can't become involved without losing my sanity. 3. For those who have inquired about my job, I have already spoken with HR about the situation. They are aware and supportive. They have strengthened security at the front desk and offered me the option to work from home more frequently. I am grateful for their understanding. 4. Many of you have inquired whether I had contemplated relocating to another city or state. It is definitely something I am thinking about. My company has offices in several other cities, so a transfer may be possible. I'm considering the advantages and cons. 5. To those suggesting a DNA test. Sarah acknowledged the affair, and the timeline is consistent. I see no reason to suspect the child is not Mike's. Even if it was mine, I doubt I could ever look at that child without thinking about this. 6. I've been overwhelmed by the number of people who have had similar experiences. It's upsetting to realize how widespread this type of betrayal is, but it's also strangely comforting to know that I'm not alone. Thank you all for being vulnerable and sharing. 7. To the individual who inquired if I had considered taking legal action against Mike for alienation of affection, I looked into it, but it is not recognized in my state. Even if it were, I don't think I have the energy for a legal battle right now. 8. Several people have noted that Mike's behavior appears narcissistic. I've started reading about narcissistic personality disorder, and much of it rings true. It helps me comprehend, but does not excuse, some of his acts. 9. Those who have inquired about Sarah's family are as startled and appalled as one could anticipate. They have cut off communication with her and have reached out to offer me their support. It's a minor comfort, but I value it. 10. To the individual who asked if I'd considered having my own children someday. Honestly, this entire experience has made me wonder whether I want to have a family at all. But I'm trying not to make any major decisions while I analyze everything. I'll keep you updated if anything big happens, but for the time being my focus is on recovering and moving ahead. Thank you again, Reddit. You have helped more than you realize. Your encouragement and suggestions have given me a lot to think about, and they have truly been a lifeline during this tough time. I may not be able to answer every remark, but please know that I read them all and they are making me feel less alone in this. Update. Hello Reddit. It's been approximately 2 weeks since my previous post, and it has been a full roller coaster. First, thank you all for your enormous support and suggestions. I never anticipated my post to go so viral, and going through all of your responses has been both upsetting and oddly reassuring. It's disturbing how regular this type of deception is. The last several weeks have been tough, to say the least. Remember how I said I was working on obtaining a restraining order? That evolved into a huge ordeal. My lawyer filed the paperwork and we had a hearing arranged. I assumed it would be simple, given the proof and the ongoing harassment, but I was mistaken. My parents arrived at the court with their own lawyer, Some fancy guy in an expensive suit who likely charges more per hour than I do in a week. They attempted to portray me as the crazy one, claiming I was ripping the family apart over a simple misunderstanding, as if Mike had stumbled and fallen into my fiancé. Fortunately, the judge didn't buy it. She issued the restraining order against Mike and my parents, but only after my mother fell into tears in court and my father glared at me as if I had committed murder. The look on Mike's face, however, I swear if looks could kill, I would be dead. As we were leaving the courthouse, Mike attempted to approach me. My lawyer stepped in between us, reminding him of the newly issued restraining order. Mike merely scoffed and said this wasn't over, and I couldn't hide behind a piece of paper forever. I'd be lying if I claimed his words didn't shake me. But at the very least, I have some legal protection. The job situation has been another nightmare. Remember when I mentioned that my family had been showing up at my workplace? This came to a head last week. I was in a meeting with a customer when my assistant alerted me that my mother was in the lobby and raising a disturbance. Apparently, she had brought a photo album and was attempting to show my coworkers baby images of Mike and me while lamenting about how close her boys used to be. I excused myself from the meeting and went down to the lobby, where I discovered my mother surrounded by a number of uncomfortable-looking coworkers. She was in the middle of relating a story about how Mike and I used to bathe together as toddlers. When she noticed me, she attempted to rush towards me, talking about a baby shower, but I interrupted her. I told her she had to go right away or I would call the police and have her removed for trespassing and breaking the restraining order. Her expression was as if I had slapped her, but after everything they had put me through, I couldn't bring myself to care. Security let her out, and I had to spend the next hour performing damage control with my employer and coworkers. Fortunately, most of them understood, but I could tell some were wondering what kind of drama I was bringing into the office. But it was the fight with Mike that really threw everything off track. Last Saturday, I was in the gym, trying to let out some of my frustration on the punching bag. I was so into my training that I didn't notice someone approaching me until I heard his voice. I swung around and there was Mike, smirking at me as if he hadn't just broken the restraining order. He began speaking loudly enough for anyone surrounding to hear. I ordered him to go before I contacted the cops, but he laughed and said he'd tell them how I had threatened him and Sarah. That was when I lost it. I swiped at him, my first landing on his jaw. He stumbled backward before lunging at me. We ended up on the floor, trading blows like kids again. Except this time there were no parents to separate us, no one instructing me to be the larger person and let Mike win. I got in a few nice hits before the gym staff separated us. Mike's nose was bleeding, and I could feel my own swelling shut. We were both shrieking, trying to get free and get back at each other. The gym manager threatened to call the cops, which ultimately shook me out of it. I grabbed my belongings and fled. I was driving home, still shaking from adrenaline, when I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I responded. Sarah was shouting at me about how I had broken Mike's nose and that he could require surgery. I couldn't help laughing. The ridiculousness of her being upset with me after what they'd done was simply too much. I apologize if I had upset her little boyfriend, whom she had been sleeping with behind my back for several months. She began sobbing, complaining about how anxious she was, how the baby could detect her pain, and how I could be so selfish. I hung up and blocked her phone. The aftermath from the brawl was severe. The news had spread like wildfire throughout our social circle. My phone was flooded with texts from friends and family members, some supporting me, others calling me out for assaulting my poor defenseless brother. Sarah's parents contacted me again, expressing their support for me and their displeasure in their daughter. It was a minor consolation, but at this point, I'll take what I can. The restraining order does not seem adequate anymore. Mike has demonstrated his willingness to violate it, and I'm concerned about what he'll do next. The legal fallout has been a nightmare. My lawyer called me the day after the gym incident. Mike apparently filed assault accusations against me. I recounted what had happened, how Mike had violated the restraining order and provoked me. My lawyer groaned and said we'd fight it, but it might be a tough struggle considering that I threw the first punch. We are in the process of bringing our own charges against Mike for breaking the restraining order. My lawyer is convinced that this will benefit our case, but nothing is guaranteed. I've had to provide police statements, show them injuries on my face and knuckles, and justify defending myself against my own brother, which is humiliating. Mike and I have been banned from the gym for life. I can't blame them, but it's unfortunate that the gym was one of the few places where I felt like I could let out some of my frustration in a healthy manner. My cousin Amy, whom I've always been close to, called me the other day. She's taken a lot of pressure from her family for supporting me, but she's staying firm. She told me about what had been going on behind the scenes. Apparently my parents have been telling everyone that I'm experiencing a mental breakdown. They claim that Sarah and Mike's relationship began after Sarah and I split up, and that I am simply envious and unable to let go. According to Amy, most of the family is skeptical, but some are. It's irritating to know that they're spreading false information about me while I'm attempting to recuperate. Things at work have been, to say the least, difficult. After the incident with my mother in the lobby and the argument with Mike, which went viral on local social media, I can sense my coworkers are on edge around me. My manager called me into his office earlier this week. He began by stating he valued me as an employee and realizes I'm going through a difficult period, but then he dropped the bombshell. He believes it would be best if I took a leave of absence until things calm down. He suggested we call it a personal sabbatical. Paid, of course. I wanted to fight, to tell him that work is the only thing keeping me sane right now, but I knew the choice had already been made. So I agreed, thanked him for his understanding and began to pack up my office. As I was leaving, I overheard two of my co-workers discussing how my brother got my fiancée pregnant. I slammed my office door louder than required as I exited, taking some little satisfaction in watching them jump. I'd be lying if I said none of this was impacting me. I've started taking long drives at night to get out of my flat. Sometimes I find myself parked outside my former place, the one I lived with Sarah, wondering how my life got so messed up. In the midst of this commotion, I received support from an unexpected source. Sarah's younger sister, Emma. Emma contacted me on social media, apologizing for her sister's conduct and giving her support. At first, I was skeptical. What if this was a trick? But after speaking with her, I realized she is equally disgusted by Sarah's behavior as I am. She's been telling me about what's going on in Sarah and Mike's lives. They appear to have moved in together, living as if they hadn't just destroyed numerous lives to be together. Emma claims Sarah has been attempting to portray herself as the victim, crying to anybody who would listen about how she never intended to hurt anyone and how she and Mike are soulmates who found each other against all odds. It makes me sick to my stomach, but I appreciate Emma keeping me in the loop. After all, information is power, even if it is knowledge that I would prefer not to have. The social media environment has been a nightmare. I've always been a rather private person, but this event has thrown me into the unwanted spotlight. Someone, probably one of Mike's friends, posted about our gym feud on a local Facebook page. The post did not mention our names, but it described the incident in enough detail for anyone who knows us to figure it out. The comment area became a battleground. Some individuals defended me, claiming Mike received what he deserved. Others described me as unstable and said I needed to be locked up. I made the mistake of looking over some of the comments one night after having too many beers. A huge mistake. I ended up hurling my phone across the room so hard that the screen cracked. Since then, I've canceled most of my social media profiles. I can't deal with the continuous notifications and messages from folks I haven't spoken to in years who suddenly want to know all the juicy details about my personal life. With everything that has happened, I have realized that I cannot stay in this city any longer. There are too many memories and chances to run into Sarah, Mike, or my parents. I've started looking for internal moves, and there's a promising opportunity in our Seattle office. It's not ideal. I've never been a fan of continual rain, but at this point, I'd move to the moon to avoid all of this turmoil. I haven't made any final decisions yet, but the concept of a fresh start is becoming increasingly intriguing. New city, new apartment, new life, where no one recognizes me as the guy whose brother cheated on his fiancée. My folks have been unusually silent since the restraining order was granted. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop, for them to figure out a new method to force their way back into my life. Sarah has been spreading the word about her pregnancy far and wide. Emma tells me she's been posting continuous updates on social media, ultrasound photographs, belly shots and so on, with a message about how blessed she and Mike are and how thrilled they are to start their family. Each new piece of information feels like a fresh wound, triggering the pain just as I thought I was beginning to recover. So that is where things stand right now. 2 weeks ago, I believed my life couldn't possibly get any worse, yet it has. I'm still angry and wounded, but also weary. I am tired of justifying myself. So Reddit, I suppose this is less of an update and more of, I'm not sure, a cry into the void. I'm not sure what I'm asking for right now. Advice, pity, or a time machine that allows me to never introduce Sarah to my brother? Whatever happens next, I will attempt to keep you all informed. Your encouragement has meant more to me than you can realize. It's nice to be reminded that there are still good individuals in the world, even when it feels like everything is full of betrayal and deceit. Final update. Hello Reddit. It's been a week since my previous update, and I'm here with what I expect to be my final post on this whole disaster. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for their help and guidance throughout this journey. Your writings have been a lifeline in the worst times of my life. So where to start? A lot has happened in just 7 days, and I'm still trying to digest everything. I guess I'll start with the major news. I'm relocating. Yes, I took the risk and accepted a transfer to our Seattle office. It was not an easy decision, but after everything that had happened, I felt I needed a new start. The choice came following an especially difficult day last week. I'd just returned from another meeting with my lawyer regarding Mike's assault allegations when I saw a note in my mailbox. It came from Sarah. I almost tossed it out before opening it, but curiosity got the best of me. Inside, there was an ultrasound image and a handwritten letter stating how pleased she and Mike were about their baby. She went on to say that she hoped I could find it in my heart to be pleased for them, and that the baby would be delighted to have its uncle in its life. I saw red. Before I realized it, I'd grabbed my phone, unblocked Sarah, and dialed her number. She picked up on the second ring and I simply let go. I informed her exactly how I felt about her, Mike, and their beautiful little family. I told her she was insane if she believed I'd ever want to do anything with that kid, and that she, Mike, and the baby could all go to hell. It wasn't my best moment, but I felt like I finally shouted everything I'd been keeping back. That's when I realized I couldn't stay in this city anymore. That same night, I called my supervisor and informed him that I wanted to transfer to Seattle. He was relieved, to be honest. I believe he was concerned about how all of this drama would affect the company. He promised to expedite the papers, and by the next morning it was official. I had 2 weeks to collect my belongings and relocate across the nation. My family and social circle were quick to learn about my move. My folks, unsurprisingly, were outraged. They turned up at my place unexpectedly, again breaking the restraining order, to try to talk me out of it. My mother was crying, accusing me of abandoning the family, and my father was furious, yelling at me for being selfish and immature. I didn't participate. I simply phoned the police and had them removed for breaking the restraining order. As they were let out, my mother yelled at me that I would regret it, that family was everything and that I was wasting it. I immediately closed the door and returned to packing. Mike reacted differently. He didn't try to contact me directly, most likely due to the current legal difficulties, but he did write a lengthy message on social media about how some people can't handle seeing others happy, and how he and Sarah were rising above the hate to focus on their new family. It was definitely intended for me, as he attempted to portray himself as the victim. I'll confess it stung to see how many people liked and commented in his favor, but I reminded myself that their opinion is meaningless because they don't know the truth. Sarah's response was the most startling. After our phone talk, she contacted her sister, Emma, who had been keeping me updated on Sarah and Mike's situation, as you may recall. Apparently, my statements had a greater impact than I had imagined. Emma informed me that Sarah had broken down, stating that she realized what she and Mike had done was terrible and was scared of the future. My cousin Amy, bless her, offered to help me pack. She even informed me more about what's going on with the family. Amy told me that my aunt, my mother's sister, had a heated argument with my mother, accusing her of always favoring Mike and pushing me away. My aunt complained that my parents were reaping the consequences of their years of favoritism. I can't say I'm not relieved to hear that someone is finally calling them out for their behavior. My lawyer assures me that my move will have no effect on the legal case, which is currently pending. We're still pursuing charges against Mike for breaching the restraining order and defending the assault accusations he brought against me. My lawyer seems certain that the judge will see through Mike's arguments, particularly considering his history of breaching the restraining order. The fact that I'm going across the nation should also show that I'm not a threat to Mike, which may help get his charges dropped. I don't know if I'll post any further updates after this. Part of starting over is putting the past behind, and as helpful as this group has been, I believe it is time for me to move on from revisiting this narrative. I need to focus on creating my new life rather than obsessing on the past. So I believe this is my final update. Wish me luck, Reddit. I've got a whole new life ahead of me in Seattle, and I intend to make the most of it. Thank you so much for staying till the end. If you enjoy our videos, don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Have a good day. Am I the asshole for hiding my boyfriend's anime body pillow while my parents were visiting? Original post: my boyfriend, M32, and I, F27, have been together for a year. He's only met my parents once over the holidays last year because they live pretty far away. They've been visiting this past week, and since he and I just moved in together, they were excited to see our new place and get to know my BF a little more. We have an extra bedroom, and this has become my boyfriend's gaming room for the most part, but we agreed when guests come over it would be a second bedroom. He really likes video games and anime in particular, so he has a lot of toys and artwork that he's collected over the years from different games and such. One thing he has is this anime body pillow that features a sexy anime girl on it. He also has a mousepad for his gaming computer that resembles a busty anime girl. Before my parents came over, I asked him to take down his toys and stuff so they could be comfortable. I was upset to see that he left the body pillow and the mousepad in place. I don't really feel comfortable with either item, but he's really into anime, so I've always kind of left it alone. But I absolutely didn't think it was appropriate to leave it there when my parents would be staying over. I took the cover off the body pillow and put the pillow in the closet, and I put the mousepad in a drawer in our room. When my parents arrived and we showed them to their room, my BF noticed the missing pillow and mousepad. Later, when we were in bed, he brought it up to me and asked why I hid them. I told him I didn't think my parents would feel comfortable with those things in the bedroom, and when they leave we can put them back. My BF got really upset. He told me that he feels like I'm ashamed of his interest in anime. He said he spent his whole life feeling like people think he's weird for being into anime, and he didn't expect his own GF to be just like everyone else. The next day I noticed him taking some of his manga books off our bookshelf and putting them into a box. I asked him why, and he said something like, "I'm putting them away so you don't have to look at them anymore." I feel really bad. I feel like I hurt him, but I just really didn't think my parents would feel comfortable sleeping in a room with those items. But now he's just acting so distant and cold, and he's not really engaging with my parents at all. They keep asking me what's wrong and I don't know what to say. AIT? Top comment. Talking mice. There's a huge difference between anime video game decorations and sexualized anime content. A busty mousepad and a sexy body pillow would most definitely make anyone feel uncomfortable. I get that it's his space too, but I think a small amount of compromise for a limited time isn't a problem at all. He might see it as you being embarrassed of his interests, but the reality is most people aren't comfortable with sexualized decor. It's not about anime at all. NTA, he really needs to have more consideration for others. OOP. That's exactly my feelings too. There's other stuff in the room that's anime gaming related that was left up, but it was more the sexual stuff I didn't feel comfortable leaving out for my parents. OOP is voted NTA update. Edit, thank you for all of the responses. And sorry it took me a few days to update. I was waiting for my parents to leave so I could talk to my boyfriend about all of this. I read through the comments and it kind of validated something I already was feeling. Sexual decor aside, the way he acted the next day when he was putting the books away really bothered me. I ended up explaining the situation to my parents and they weren't exactly thrilled by his reaction either. I got the feeling after this trip that they don't really approve of him. Which is neither here nor there. I'm 27 and I'm old enough to make my own choices. But above everything else, my parents mean a lot to me. I never get to see them, and it was important to me that my BF would be present and treat them well while they were here. After they left, I drove them to the airport. BF refused to come. I came back from the airport and found a couple trash bags outside the door. Turns out that once I left, my BF started throwing all of his anime things into these bags. I asked why and he said something along the same lines as before, that clearly his interests weren't welcome in my home and he'd keep them in his car until he figured out what to do with them. I kinda snapped. I'd been keeping it together all week for my parents, but I had enough at this point. I told him I never asked him to get rid of his anime stuff, just that it wasn't appropriate for my parents while they were staying with us. I told him this reaction is unfair and he's being manipulative. I told him that this week was supposed to be about him getting to know my parents, but he was too fixated on this anime issue to even spend any real time with them. He then called me manipulative for making him believe that I was cool with his love for anime for the past year when I was clearly ashamed of it. He also said he didn't want to be a part of a family that doesn't appreciate anime. We went back and forth for a while and then I told him we needed space. I wasn't even really planning that, but it came out and it felt like the right thing for me. Well, he then started crying a lot and apologizing and immediately tried to take back what he said, but I was just done at this point. He left eventually and now I'm here in this apartment alone. Well, and the mousepad and body pillow, lol. He left those behind. Anyway. I don't really know if we're broken up officially or what, but it seems to be heading that way. I'm just feeling awful, and I almost wish this all happened before my parents visited because I feel like it tainted the whole trip. But yeah. Thanks for the replies, guys, and for helping me open my eyes a bit. Editor's note: I couldn't decide if this one was concluded or ongoing. I've marked it as ongoing for now, but if people disagree I can change it. Now to the next story, story 2. After discovering my husband's affair with my best friend, I face loss, divorce, and find new love in a lifelong friendship. Original post, June 5, 2023. OOP and her husband had been together since she was 19 and he was 22. Married for 6 years now with 2 kids, third baby on the way. She found out her dad has cancer. Her mother passed away when she was 12. OOP's husband has been very supportive from day one and suggested that she step away from her job for a while to take care of her family. OOP has her best friend who she knew since they were babies. Both families grew up together. After going to wake her husband up, she discovered her friend's text messages to him from his phone. Realizing it has been going on for 4 months when OOP's husband and her best friend have been lying to her. She tries to figure out what to do next that she knows now about the affair. Update 1. June 5, 2023. Same day, 14 hours later. OOP spent a good amount of time gathering and documenting everything she has on her husband and her best friend. Used her dad's hospice care plan as a front cover so her husband doesn't know she knew about his infidelity. She is thinking about going back to work, but working with a lawyer first to get things in order should she move forward with the next steps of her life. Per her lawyer, OOP doesn't have to worry about her inheritance from her parents, which her husband cannot touch at all. While her husband was at work, OOP revealed what took place between her husband and best friend to their mothers, who are now upset about the whole incident. Met with the lawyer, OOP gets her finances, logistics, and everything in order to make sure she is in a good position to go after her husband and best friend. Update 2. June 6, 2023, 1 day later. OOP names the characters in the posts. MIL and File, Ruth and Joe. ex-BFF's parents, Angie and Bob. Ex-BFF, Jess/STBX, Tyler. Ex-BFF's brother, Jake. OOP's dad. Dad. OOP provides a quick summary on how things went so quickly in the last couple posts. She was able to meet with her OBGYN on the same day to get checked, all clear. Several more tests were done and waiting for the results to arrive. OOP met with her lawyer to go over everything, including her husband's financial records, which she got a hold of to make sure her bases are covered. If everything goes well with what she got, OOP should not have any problems with getting the divorce papers within a month. Ruth and Angie, MIL and ex-BFF's mothers, told OOP what happened after both sets of parents confronted Tyler, EX, and Jess, EX-BFF. All 4 parents are very upset with both Tyler and Jess for the affair, and they have been cut off from their families. Tyler discovers OOP has moved her stuff and their children's stuff to her dad's to get away. Damaged the house and went to look for OOP. She left for her dad's cabin with her kids, now away and safe. Tyler is arrested after trying to break into OOP's dad's house, not cabin. OOP had to get her own therapy session and will set up therapy sessions for her children. Per her lawyer, OOP is collecting text messages from Jess, who told her to fix everything, especially her parents cutting her off. Blamed OOP for stealing Tyler from her. Tyler wanted to reconcile, but OOP isn't giving in. He doesn't know about the divorce papers yet until he is served. OOP suspected Tyler and Jess won't be staying together since their parents have confronted them. Jess's brother Jake is on leave from the military. He steps in to help OOP and her family, per Angie and Bob. OOP thanks Redditors for continuing support as she deals with the whole situation on Tyler and Jess. Update 3. June 12, 2023, 6 days later. Tyler finds OOP's post and asks if she is serving him the divorce papers. OOP said yes. He begs for forgiveness for his behavior toward her. OOP has regular meetings with her lawyer to make sure she has everything as needed. Jake is doing great, being a great support system for OOP and her children. OOP's dad is not doing well, now in the hospital for a while. Kids are adjusting well, along with therapy already set up to cope with unexpected events in their lives after moving away from Tyler. Still pregnant for a couple more months. Update 4. July 23, 2023, 1 month later. OOP's dad has died. Her marriage ended in dissolution after Tyler was served with the papers. Per her lawyer, The dissolution process was quick and smoothly after Tyler gave OOP everything she asked for in the divorce papers. OOP has full custody of the kids with visitations for Tyler. Therapy is going on for OOP and her kids. Still pregnant, but the baby is doing well. OOP's ex-MIL, Ruth, and ex-BFF's mom Angie are helping her with the kids. All three women are on great terms with each other. Jake has gone back to his active duties but will be back to help OOP and her children. Their friendship is great and might be moving on to the next step, but Jake and OOP are taking things slowly. Tyler and Jess are no longer together. He has left Jess, who has been blacklisted from her family after the blow-up. Update 5, in comments. August 23, 2023, 1 month later. OOP is back with a small update. Her baby boy was born slightly prematurely, but he didn't have to do a NICU stay. Angie, ex-BFF's mom, was present at the birth while Ruth, MIL, stayed with the older children. Both Ruth and Angie took turns staying with OOP for several weeks to assist with the baby and his siblings. OOP is very glad to have support from both mothers. Sadly, the baby doesn't get a chance to get to know his grandpa, OOP's dad, who passed on a few weeks before. Jake is in the process of moving back home after receiving some news on a change in his military career. He has been offered an early retirement, which was not his fault at his base. OOP stated Jake is looking for a place but might stay with her and her children temporarily until he has a place to live in. Tyler, EX, was upset because he wasn't allowed in the room when OOP gave birth. OOP will give more updates on her ex when things calm down. Update 6, October 14, 2023, 2.5 months later. OOP answers prior questions regarding Tyler before giving the latest update. MIL is no contact while FIL is low contact with Tyler when he has supervised visits with the kids. He has cheated on OOP with another girl besides Jess. OOP is not worried about Jess having a sibling relationship with Jake, brother, because they didn't have a great relationship growing up. Jake had been in low contact with Jess prior to the blow-up and has remained the same since then. OOP's oldest child understands the situation with Tyler. Both kids are in therapy per OOP in order to have healthy coping methods with their dad being out. OOP doesn't want to accept any donations from strangers to help out. She has her inheritance from her dad who has passed on. OOP gave a great update on her baby boy who has been reaching all milestones despite the fact being born slightly prematurely. Her oldest children are in love with their baby brother. Angie and Bob, Jess's parents, have been called grandparents, being there for OOP and her children. Tyler wasn't at the birth but has blown up at OOP for not letting him see his child. Per OOP's requests at the hospital where she works as an RN, Tyler was escorted off the property for OOP's own safety. Since then Tyler hasn't paid any visits to see his children. Turned out he has gotten a new girlfriend and now wasn't interested in seeing his kids after FIL paid a visit to check in with Tyler. OOP has been keeping in touch with Jake who has been very thoughtful of OOP. Had some food delivered to OOP and catching up. Jake also checked in with OOP's children to make sure they are well. Respected OOP's boundaries. He will be coming home in the next few months to take care of personal business including house hunting. OOP is looking forward to having Jake's visits. What about OOP herself? Therapy has been helpful since she started. Sad about her father's passing. Shared how her relationship with her dad was great. Glad to have Angie and Ruth in her corner along with a large support system. OOP is sad for her children because they don't have their dad in their lives now after Tyler has bailed out on them once he had a new girlfriend. OOP is preparing to head back to work and find a new normal for herself and her children. Ready for a new chapter to start. Update 7, December 25, 2023, 2 months later. OOP shared a short update. She received a surprise for Christmas when Jake came home to visit her and her children. The older children have stated Santa has brought Uncle Jake home. Update 8. February 9, 2024, 1.5 months later. OOP shared some news since the last few updates. Tyler hasn't seen the kids since he started dating his girlfriend. Stopped talked with FIL who was the middleman for OOP and Tyler for their children's visits. OOP has offered alternative ways of communication for their children's sake. Tyler turned them down because he chose his girlfriend over his children who haven't seen for a while. OOP has figured she was going to be a single mom after Tyler bailed out. Ruth and Angie have provided childcare while OOP adjusts to her work schedule. Very glad to come home to happy children, a clean home, and dinner on the stove. Briefly, OOP was asked if she's religious. She has stated she's not judging people and has encouraged people to be themselves for who they are. OOP shared that she's dating Jake currently. Stating the air quotes because Jake and OOP are taking things slowly. OOP received her first kiss. Went out on several dates here and there, but also included kids for movie nights at home. Things are going well for both. Jake and OOP might enter the boyfriend and girlfriend phase. Jake has been very supportive, helping OOP with her kids including the baby boy. Jake has been very respectful of OOP's boundaries, which makes OOP so glad she has someone who understands her. OOP shared she wanted to wait and receive Jake's stamp of approval on what she shares with the Reddit community. Update 9, May 24, 2024, 3 months later. It has been almost a year since OOP first discovered her ex-husband's affair. OOP shared a quick update on some Redditors who saw Jake's comment on OOP's Reddit account being locked out. Turned out it was Jess who changed the password. OOP explained from the beginning how she found Jess walking into her house while Jake was outside in the backyard with the kids. Jess has tried to make threats against OOP while in the kitchen. Jake managed to get inside after hearing OOP's screams. He got Jess out of the house before the police were called. Jess made up a story to the police and accused OOP for threatening her. It backfired at Jess as OOP had cameras everywhere and showed the police the evidence. Jess was escorted off the property. That was when Jess hacked into OOP's social media accounts including Reddit, but OOP managed to stop Jess from accessing Reddit. Jess later spammed OOP's job, resulting in a week's suspension. OOP was cleared after the evidence showed OOP was telling the truth and Jess was falsifying everything. What led OOP to get a restraining order against Jess was when she tried to pick up OOP's oldest son from school without anyone knowing about it. The school was well aware after meeting with OOP regarding Tyler being violent in front of the kids prior. They escorted Jess off the school campus and kept OOP's oldest safe until OOP came for the pickup. OOP has an emergency order in place, but will be at the court to request for a permanent one within the next month or so. Locks were changed immediately after the incident with Jess and the police. Angie and Bob are very angry with their daughter for what happened. There is no update on Tyler. OOP shares that she hasn't heard from him since he last bailed out on the visitations with their children. OOP realized her oldest has wanted Jake to be the dad instead of Tyler. She knew the kids were moving forward and accepting the fact of Tyler not being in their lives anymore. OOP learns from Ruth and Joe, Tyler's parents, that Tyler has remarried and is expecting a baby with his new wife. Ruth told OOP she and Phil got invitations from Tyler and his wife. That is how OOP learned about Tyler. OOP's 2 children are still in therapy and was informed her oldest is ready to call Jake dad instead of Tyler. Her middle child seems to move on and forget who Tyler was since both children have been bonding well with Jake. Now on to Jake. OOP realized she has been feeling so much happier now when Jake has been around and creating a healthy relationship. It is a blessing for OOP to have Jake there because he checks in regularly when he is at work or anywhere away from OOP and her kids. It showed OOP Jake cares about her and her family. Jake told OOP she is his girlfriend practically the whole time. Update 10. June 26, 2024. 1 month later. OOP is back with a new update. This time, it's on the restraining order she has against Jess. OOP wasn't approved for a permanent one, but did receive a 7-year restraining order. Where she is located, it appears to be very difficult to obtain a permanent restraining order without any additional and hard evidence that could result in a life or death situation. If Jess resumes her harassment onto OOP after 7 years are up, OOP can take her back to the courts for another restraining order. OOP requests no more questions regarding Jess as she is ready to move on after she has the restraining order in place. OOP made an additional comment to confirm her children are also included in the restraining order against Jess, so all good. Per OOP, Jake is doing great, and has moved in with OOP and her children. They are all thrilled with the next step, OOP again stating the fact she has known Jake all her life so she's not worried. There's nothing new with Tyler since he has made no contacts with his children. The children are doing well. Part 1 of 2 updates. September 10, 2024. If you are triggered by mentions of death and drug use, you should probably skip this update. I will be making an entirely different post for the life updates so you won't miss anything. Please take care of your mental health first. Hey guys, I have some news. I'm not entirely sure on how to say it, so I'm just going to say it. Jess was found deceased in her apartment from a drug overdose at the end of July. To say it was a shock would be an understatement of the century. Jess was the kind of girl who never touched a drug in her life. Even back in the day when I would partake in smoking weed from time to time, she would pick a fight with me about it. A part of me is devastated. She was my best friend and we went through so much together, we had so much history. She wrote me a letter. I'm not going to go into every single detail about it, but I will highlight one main part of it. She told me she saw I was trapped in an unhappy, loveless marriage and she wanted to help me get out of it. She didn't know what to do, so one night when she started doing drugs, she decided to get rid of Tyler. The only way she knew how was by sleeping with him. From there things spiraled and she fell in love with him, and became jealous because he would fill her head with pretty white lies and then go home to me. While I don't forgive her for what she did to me, I get it. I do. Jake has been blaming himself of sorts. Yes, he was pissed at her, but he didn't want her dead. None of us did. He's been having a hard time with things, but in true Jake fashion, he's been shoving his grief to the side to be there for everyone else. He stayed with his parents the first month after everything happened to take care of them, and then would come check on me at least twice a day. He still won't really talk about it, so I try to be there for him in every way possible without the use of words. Angie isn't doing well. She lost a child, and even though she cut her off, that's still her daughter and she still loves her. I've been stopping by their house once a day to check on her and bring her meals to ensure everyone is eating. Jake's dad. Well, he's been handling it much better than I thought. Jess was always closer to him, but he told me, maybe I'm a heartless bastard, but once I saw the woman she was becoming, I stopped thinking of her as my daughter. I already grieved the loss of my daughter a long time ago. So there's that. Just to put it out there, nobody is blaming me. They made the choice to cut Jess out of their life of their own free will, and I made it clear to them when all of this first came out that I wouldn't blame them if they wanted to keep their relationship with their daughter-sister. Angie even made it a point to tell me it's not my fault, and we hugged and cried together. We're not sure if she did it on purpose or if she had letters for everyone as a backup in case she happened to overdose, but the letters weren't out in the open by her body. They were tucked away in a drawer. To end this update, I just want to make it clear that though I had a lot of hate in my heart for Jess, there was also a lot of love there too. She hurt me and betrayed me, but had she not done that, I would still be stuck married to a man I felt indifference towards and would not be as happy as I am. She did it in a fucked up way, but in a sense she did free me from my shackles. I will always love her, and this loss is one that will stay with me for the rest of my life. Relevant comments. OOP on how Jess's parents and brother, Angie and Bob, and Jake are taking the news of her death. OP. Angie and her husband are in grief counseling, but it's not something Jake is interested in. I did try to push him on it, but he said he'd rather deal with the loss in his own way. I've been respecting that choice, but I do bring it up to him from time to time to ensure no one will think any less of him if he needs help processing. I did manage to get him to attend one of my therapy sessions with me about the grief, and he did get some things off his chest, but he'd rather handle his grief quietly, so I haven't been too overbearing about it. What has OOP know so far about Jess getting into drugs? OOP, personally, I don't think Jess started doing drugs until after the affair was discovered. I think that's what triggered her into finding this new escape. I'd like to believe I would have noticed something that big, but I was also so wrapped in grief over losing my only remaining parent that maybe I did miss some signs. I know without a doubt I would have noticed if she was high around me though, so if it was pre-discovery, she didn't do them around me or hang out with me if she was high. OOP on if Tyler has known what happened or not. OOP, if Tyler knows, he didn't say anything to me about it. I also didn't reach out to him and freely offer the information. I really hate to say this, but her obsession with Tyler ran much deeper than I initially realized. I thought it was just a fling, but after going through her apartment and helping Angie and Jake clear it out, I realized that what she felt for him was really walking the line of obsession. There's a part of me that feels like this was her cry to him, to see if he would run back to her and rescue her from herself. OOP's thoughts on if Jess had always wanted what OOP had. Being jealous of OOP in her life. OOP. I think you're pretty close, and this is me making an educational guess because only Jess truly knows, but I like to think I know her well enough to answer this. Had Jess and I fallen out any other way, her parents wouldn't have cut me off unless I did to her what she did to me. They would have distanced from me, and helped Jess through it. This is the first time they made this decision. We've had our fair share of arguments and her parents would take her side, even if she was wrong. Jess was very close to her dad, and while he was like a dad to me as well, we didn't really have that father-daughter bond. Angie always looked after me because my mom was her best friend, And she did mother-daughter things with me since I lost mine so young. But she did more with her own daughter than me, which I never felt ill will towards. Jess and Angie were also close, and Angie always made sure Jess never felt unloved or left out. And Jess even made comments over the years that she was glad that her mom stepped in for me, but never overstepped. They had countless talks about it to the point Jess would come to me and joke about it saying, "Mom's having one of her moments where she wants to make sure I'm not jealous or upset that she did this and this with you, lol." Her and Jake were never close growing up. More so because all of Jess's friends used her to get closer to Jake, though I'm the first friend of Jess's that Jake actually made a move on. He would ignore the friends and Jess would blame him for it. I'm going to try to word this as gently as possible without trying to sound like a complete asshole. Jess was always boy crazy, the girl who was constantly vying for a man's attention. While I don't think there's anything wrong with that, there is something wrong in how Jess went about it. She saw men as a way to prove her worth. However, teenage boys and even men can be pretty shallow, and the men Jess typically went after were pretty shallow. Jess was always bigger. I wouldn't say she was full out fat, but she had a belly and hips, and I didn't stay over 100 pounds until I had my first child, and even then I was still skinny. So of course, these shallow-ass men, when they saw her and I together they would divert their attention to me instead of her. I of course always ignored them, but I think that had set a deep-rooted insecurity in her, that she was always second best to me when it came to men. I never saw it that way, and I never went after the men she liked. I married Tyler and shortly after I married Tyler, Jess got married to the guy I had a crush on in high school. I truthfully didn't care because it was an innocent crush and I never acted on it, but the guy was an ass and in his wedding speech made a comment about how he got second best to what he really wanted, and everyone hated the guy. All of us begged her to not marry him once he showed his true colors long before that wedding speech. But she saw it as me being jealous and we actually stopped talking for a while because of it. So I think getting my husband to sleep with her was her way of proving she wasn't second best. Only when my husband didn't pursue a relationship with her like she hoped, she became obsessed with the idea of him and trying to prove she was the better lover. I don't know what the end goal was truthfully, but I just hope she's at peace now. Part 2 of 2. Updates, September 10th, 2024, same day, 1 hour later. Hey guys, I know the last post was heavy, so if you need someone to talk to please feel free to reach out. I understand stuff like that leaves its mark. Here's to a more cheerful update. Tyler is still MIA from the kid's life. Still hasn't reached out, and I'm not chasing after him to be involved with the kids. They deserve more from their dad. The kids are doing just wonderful. They've really taken to Jake, even the baby calls him Dada, and once he and I had a long talk about it, I've decided that if the kids want to call him Dad I won't intervene. My oldest made the transition from Uncle Jake to Dad, my middle child still calls him Uncle Jake but that's completely fine with me. How they want to pursue that relationship I will let them. Jake actually started coaching their indoor soccer league and they love having him there. The house just has this sense of peace now, and all of them are just so happy that it makes my heart so full. I did have a conversation with them about Aunt Jess being in heaven with Papa and they took it well, probably because they've hardly seen her in the last year. Tyler's parents have still been just as involved and are actually really close to Jake's parents. They've all been so wonderful that sometimes I feel like I'm dreaming. Angie, and I think the fake name I assigned Angie's husband was Bob, please bear with me if I'm wrong. Bob has retreated a little from the kids' life to deal with their grief, which I completely understand. They do still see the kids at least once a week and Angie mentioned it helps her, spending time with them. Roughly 2 weeks after Jess passed away, Jake asked me to marry him. I told him I wasn't saying no, but I wanted him to sit with this a little longer and make sure this was something he actually wanted and he wasn't making a hasty decision in the midst of grief. A month later, after the dust had started to settle and things were slowly falling back into our routines, he asked me again. He had this whole speech about how he's wanted this for as long as he could remember and even mentioned how when we were kids he said he would marry me when we grew up. It's true he did say that to me when I was like 5 lol, so I said yes. We are having a long engagement. I don't want to jump right back into a marriage, so we're taking our time and haven't even started wedding planning yet. Maybe come 2025 we'll start the plans. To be totally honest though, we've just been debating on an elopement, something small with just his parents and the kids. Who knows though, we have time to figure it out. Life has been a whirlwind full of ups and downs, but I'm so lucky to have so many wonderful people who love me and my kids. As always, thank you for being here with me throughout this journey. I love you guys. Until next time. Relevant comments. OOP on how Angie and Bob are taking the news of her engagement. OOP, Angie is very thrilled. She's actually been doing some wedding planning, and I've been letting her do her own thing. I think it's helping keep her busy. When we told Angie and Bob, Angie actually started crying. She said that her and my mom used to joke about us growing up and getting married, and they were thrilled about the idea of them becoming actually related by marriage. Bob is happy because he knows Jake is a good man who would, in his words, take care of you and the kids, and if he did anything to hurt me, all I needed to do was call him and he'd put the fear of God in Jake, lol. Left my fiancée due to her abusive family. Weeks later, she's gone forever. I uncovered affairs and lies that shattered our entire friend group. I've been dating my fiancée for 4 years and engaged for 7 months. We were trying to arrange our wedding for the fall of next year. To put it plainly, her childhood was horrific. Her parents were raving narcissists, and she became the scapegoat for her 2 brothers. She was abused and expelled the moment she turned 18. However, she was an excellent student and a diligent worker. With several scholarships and part-time work, she established a successful profession and became self-sufficient. The trouble, however, was that she maintained communication with her family. None of them have changed. In fact, they have grown more financially reliant on her. They gradually re-entered her life, emotionally blackmailing her for support. They're not happy about it either. They're rude, condescending, and generally enjoy being a nuisance, but my fiancée can't say no, no matter what terrible things they say or how blatantly they try to intimidate her. I've always been aware of her family history and have supported her in dealing with it. However, during the last year, they've grown significantly more aggressive and disruptive. They are becoming increasingly frequent visitors to our home, leaving messes everywhere. Her mother behaves like Cinderella's stepmother. Her father consumes all of my beer and depletes half of the refrigerator, and her brothers pay visits sometimes, serving as mouthpieces for their parents. They practically trashed the place and left us to clean it up. Meanwhile, my fiancée is standing quietly in the corner, virtually shivering. I'm no fool. I understand the legitimate trauma and her desire to feel loved by them. She hopes they will eventually appreciate her. In case you were wondering, she has been in therapy for years to address this. For over 2 years, I've attempted to set boundaries and push these people away, but this is her house. She bought it. And no matter what my financial or emotional contributions are, she won't let me have a say in who comes over. She recently informed me that she wants to gain their acceptance, that they were correct about her, and that she must improve for their sake. We've had several emotional chats, full of tears and begging, in the hopes that she'll take action to improve. However, she is an adult, and I cannot force her to do anything. I love her, but I can't help but be resentful of what she's doing. It's heartbreaking to see someone you care about, who deserves so much better, blatantly ruin themselves for individuals like her family. I've tried numerous times to help her escape their grasp, but I have to think of our future. What happens when we have children? What happens if she is postpartum and invites them over? What if there is a medical emergency or our funds are short and they continue to demand money? This is the in-law family from hell, and I'll be unable to avoid them. Tomorrow, I'll inform her that I want to postpone the wedding until definite boundaries are created. If she resents it, I will leave. I can't take it any longer. I refuse to see this creeping devastation. Update. I spoke with her and everything went as expected. I'm now staying in a motel for a few days while planning my long-term move. There's still a lot going on right now, but perhaps by next week I'll be able to compile everything into a single update. Update 1. The night after I posted the first post, I decided to have a conversation with my fiancée regarding her family. However, she returned from work early the next day, and as I was already off that day, I started the conversation earlier than I had intended. Essentially, I warned her that this arrangement was unsustainable. I did not feel comfortable marrying her because of how involved her family is in her life, and I certainly did not feel good bringing a child into the world with them present. I didn't want to advise her to break off communication with them totally, but I did ask for strong restrictions on when they could come over and what they could do around the home. I also requested couples treatment before getting married. She was not pleased. She simply stared at me fiercely as I spoke, then began shrieking after I finished. She said I didn't understand their relationship, but it worked for her. I told her they were abusive users who would bleed her dry, and I had never seen them treat her with kindness. She reacted by claiming she simply needed to work harder for people to appreciate her. I basically yelled back that a child shouldn't have to beg, plead, or work to be loved by their parents. Finally, I informed her that either she established limits for them or I'd walk. She was furious, and as I was living in her home, I was booted out. I've been staying at a hotel for the past few days and my belongings have been taken out and stored. Frankly, it's been fantastic. I want to spend a few weeks with my family around mid-July before commencing house shopping on my own. I've spent the last few days relaxing, catching up on movies and video games that I hadn't had time for, and returning home to a peaceful room without her family tearing it apart. Things finally came to a head yesterday. We've had almost no contact since she kicked me out, but I know her family loves to spend the afternoon at her house every Saturday, and she generally uses me as a shield from their abuse. In a pretty selfish action, I simply left my phone muted all day and listened *Disco Elysium*. I knew she'd call for help with her family, but at this point sheer hatred had set in, and I didn't want to deal with her concerns. By the end of the night, she'd texted me over a dozen times and left 2 desperate voicemails urging me to come home. I decided to go over and check on her. Long story short, she was sobbing in the living room, and when I approached her, she literally crushed my back, clinging and crying. I waited for her to calm down before asking what had happened. Apparently, her mom and brother stopped by to demand money and utter awful things to her. She asked me to come help, but I had been ignoring her. When she sought to get assistance from one of her pals, everyone essentially said no. That's when it all clicked for her, and she eventually kicked her family out. But not before they said some truly terrible things to her, which I will not repeat. She repeatedly apologized to me and told me to come home. I told her openly that I had been harboring strong feelings of anger toward her for some years, and that while I loved her and knew that it was trauma rather than her being outright abusive, there were huge issues that needed to be addressed before we could move forward. First, she sells the house and relocates. We make nearly the same amount of money and plan to buy a property together. I am an adult man, and I will not live in a home where I have no equal agency. Second, her relatives will never enter it. They will never come over, and if they do, I will treat them in a hostile manner. Third, she sees a new therapist and we begin premarital counseling. Fourth, she never forced me to interact with her relatives again. Fifth, we will maintain little communication with her family for the time being, but make no mistake. We are moving toward complete no contact from her end. I told her that I loved her. We've been together for a long time and have wonderful memories, and I know she's been abused. But these conditions cannot be changed. If she has a problem with any of them, we will have to part ways. She informed me she's known for a while that her family is poisonous and unhealthy, and she wants to make changes, but some of them will take time to manifest. For the time being, I plan to stay in the hotel till I return to see my family. She is welcome to come over, but I have made it obvious that her home is not a place I want to be. We both have the day off tomorrow, so we'll spend it here and maybe go out. This is definitely not over yet. But I may not publish again until mid-August or so. Update 2. Despite my best intentions to not update until much later, with the hopes of improving my relationship with my fiancée and her establishing boundaries with her toxic family, we have now split up. Essentially what occurred was that after last weekend, when I left her to deal with her family on her own, she appeared to fully understand the issue and was open to adjustments, including limits and a possible transfer. We spent Monday and Tuesday hanging out at my hotel before I returned to my family for a few weeks. She was scheduled to come over the previous night, but her texts were pretty ambiguous. She arrived considerably later than usual, and I sensed something was wrong. She basically went off on me, calling me abusive, overbearing, extremely demanding and unsupportive. It took me 5 seconds to realize she was reciting a planned speech from her parents. To be honest, I was so irritated at this point that, despite taking a tremendous risk on her, I chose to be a jerk about it. I questioned if her relatives had told her to say this. She said they proposed it, although she came up with it herself. Sure. I requested her to explain in detail what I had done wrong. She stated I was parasitic on her. I reminded her that I was paying 50/50ths for her mortgage, electricity and groceries, and that I own and pay for my own car, as well as a job that pays the same as hers. Unlike her parasitic parents, who demand cash every week and loot the kitchen on weekends. I advised her to try again with something better. She appeared flustered and said I was attempting to isolate her. I smirked and informed her that I had always supported her many friendships, which she ended on her own since no one wanted to deal with her family or be used as a shield like me. At this point, I was nearly demanding to know why she was so determined to wreck her life for these individuals. She simply shouted that I don't understand her family and that she's just trying to reclaim their affection, and she was really ranting at that point. It's really incredible to see up close. I went to a few subreddits to get perspectives, and if you're familiar with them, you'll see how people who have been abused by their own family can be so completely broken that it wrecks their brain to the point where they believe they are the problem and deserve the abuse. That was exactly how she was. Completely shattered and unable to accept help. She didn't want to improve. She only wanted to get worse. The knowledge hit me hard, like a truck. I felt like a fool for attempting, even though it was what I was supposed to do in the first place. She was virtually insane by this point, and I was simply mentally weary and needed her to go before the cops arrived. She eventually went, but a few concerned neighbors checked on me. Some of her friends are aware, as they have messaged me to inquire about the situation. I told them the truth. I needed to be alone to think about what to do next. They have now revealed that she has delivered similar rants in response to their concern for her. One had even heard that she could lose her job. She is certainly taking a mental break from my understanding. She is now fully alone, plunging into a miserable, lonely existence. There's nothing I can do for her at this point, and as selfish as it may sound, I'm simply relieved it's over. Update 3. Things had mostly been wrapped up, but there remained a few loose ends. I absolutely failed to change my mailing address, which I should have done right away, so a few crucial things were delivered to her residence. I had to go get them, as well as a few other items I had left behind that I had decided I wanted to keep. She was being difficult and did not answer messages about them, so I had to go retrieve them myself. I had brought a common acquaintance just in case. Fortunately, she was cooperative in allowing me to retrieve my belongings, which was not a big deal. Everything else was another story. She said a lot of unpleasant things to me, including how she was already sleeping around, how pleased she was that I was gone, and how she was finally free from me. She said she'd be so much better off without me. All typical insults and dreadful things you'd expect from a bad breakup. You know what? It was clear that it was a scripted script from her family, and you could tell she was miserable. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. The house was a mess. She wasn't even yelling. She sounded drained and broken as she said it. She didn't even smile as she spoke. Her face was distorted with hatred and wrath. She wasn't the lady I knew anymore. That individual was gone. When I was about to leave, she was still going on. I got fed up and told her something like, "Congratulations, your friends are gone, your human shields are gone, your engagement is over, and your support is gone. Anyone who has ever treated you with dignity is no longer alive. It's only you and your family. I hope you're content while they bleed you dry." It most likely did not go precisely as described, but something similar. She simply stood there, stared at me indifferently, and walked away as I walked out the door. Tiffany, a common friend, inquired about my well-being as we were leaving. I reassured her that I was and explained that I was only preparing to return home next week. She also confirmed that she had heard that my ex had been fired for failing to show up for work for several days and effectively disappearing. They're going to try an intervention next week and have asked if I can participate, but I'm not postponing my trip because frankly, I just want a clean break. I know that if I continue involved, I will only see a steady decline into either a complete breakdown or suicide. I simply cannot do that. Despite this, I'm excited about the future. I realized I overlooked far too many red signs in the beginning. Despite all that has transpired, I am confident that I will do well. I expect this to be my final update. I'm still in town till Sunday afternoon, so something may happen while I'm here, but it won't be exciting. Update 4. I'm currently in my home state visiting family, reacquainting myself with the place. I've decided to stay here permanently and have begun the long process of looking for properties in the region. I've been doing well, going out with friends and family. A handful of mutual friends with my ex-fiancée have told me what's been going on, and things appear to be improving. The intervention was supposed to take place on Sunday, but Saturday night after her family paid her another visit, she called pals in a fit of mania. It appears that she has now realized how horribly she screwed up. It was a full-blown panic episode and meltdown that landed her in the emergency room. Needless to say, she finally admits how miserable she is and how horribly she has messed up her life. Apparently, she attempted to phone me, but I had blocked her. She still has a job, and the information about her losing it was incorrect, but she is hanging by a thread there. Her supervisor has effectively told her to take a few weeks off work to clear her mind. Her friend circle is quite close. My ex was a really helpful and supportive friend, so it's understandable that her friends are going to such lengths to aid her. However, there is an implicit agreement that if she returns to her old ways, they will all allow her to sink on her own. She's doing as well as can be expected, however her family has continued to bother her with phone calls and messages. They attempted to visit her residence but were strongly redirected by friends and neighbors. I hope she understands the type of support system she has. As trashy as family arguments generally are, her parents and brothers have taken it to Facebook, which, according to what I've heard, has worked to my ex's advantage. It has exposed their behavior to a larger audience and appears to have silenced them for a short time. Finally, she had one of our common friends deliver a note to me. Essentially, she was confessing that all of the horrific things she said to me were lies and that her family had pressured her to say them, which I had known all along. She apologized for how things ended and hoped we could reconnect someday. Unfortunately, I had to explain that we needed to stay apart for good and that she should focus on her recuperation. I informed her that while I still care for her and wish her the best, this was our final goodbye. The message appears to have been sent and her friends are assisting her in processing it. She has a long way to go, but I hope she finds peace as I do. Comments. OOP regarding the ex's parents' opinions. OOP, they simply tried to play the "your daughter is ungrateful and cruel" card with close friends and family, only for a slew of people to call them out on their actions. Take this with a grain of salt, as it is unsubstantiated, but according to one source, in retribution, people began phoning one of the brothers' workplaces and leaving critical reviews on their Facebook page, airing all of the dirty laundry. It's not going well for him, although this is unconfirmed. Top comment. Her parents and brothers have escalated their family feud on Facebook. There were no falsehoods discovered. I applaud OOP for avoiding that disaster as much as possible. It's much better for this woman if she understands that her decisions have real repercussions, and if she doesn't want such consequences in the future, she needs to perform serious self-improvement. Update 5. I've been doing pretty well since I returned home. All of my belongings arrived safely, and I am now living with my family while I look for a new home. I've set up my employment here and have been back at work for the past week. I occasionally come here to comment and post, but that is all. Unfortunately, despite the best intentions of my ex's friends, the scenario has now ended in the worst possible way, and the friend group has been fractured as a consequence. My ex took her own life. Almost everything I'm about to say I learned last night. Since I left, her friends had been assisting her in getting back on her feet, encouraging her to seek better therapy, establishing boundaries with her family, and getting her out of the house. They definitely went above and above. Tiffany, the friend who was there to help me the last time I spoke face-to-face with my ex, became suspicious when she noticed my ex being touchy-feely with her boyfriend Daniel, while they were hanging out at her place. I don't sure exactly when things progressed, but Tiffany ultimately got hold of her boyfriend's phone when he was sleeping and discovered highly sexual messages between him and my ex. These texts were more than 5 months old, which surprised me greatly. Tiffany clearly lost it and informed everyone. Nobody could have predicted the drama that unfolded. Daniel, Tiffany's now ex, threw another member of the friend group, Joseph, under the bus, alleging he had covered for him. Joseph's girlfriend in turn dumped him and kicked him out of her home. A friend group of about 9 people, including my ex, nearly imploded. Tiffany and Joseph's ex are the only ones that continue to communicate. Mind you, when I was being told all of this, I was informed that, despite the fact that I had been gone for almost a month, everything had occurred within the first week of my absence. My ex immediately lost her entire support system and was accused of everything. This simply exacerbated her already deteriorating mental health. Of course, everyone was curious as to why she had done such things to one of her closest friends. She simply stated that they had become close and that he was a terrific support system for her. Of course, she'd told her family about him, and they approved of him over me. She asked him over the night I left for the motel. Apparently, her ultimate goal was to leave me for him. He wouldn't leave Tiffany for her, and he despised hearing about her family, so he certainly wouldn't pursue anything other than a hidden affair. I expected to be much furious than I was, but I had already started to move on. I had just had a comprehensive health exam at my new doctor's office and received a clean bill of health, with no STDs, so I didn't have to worry about that. Getting outraged would be counterproductive at this stage. I was told that I was informed late because no one knew how to break the news to me, which is understandable. So yep, my ex was absolutely shunned, even by Tiffany's ex, who simply disappeared. She was blocked and left to cope with her troubles on her own. Tiffany simply knew that she had lost her work for good and spent all of her leisure time with her family. They had finally triumphed, in a sense. It was discovered 2 nights earlier that she had committed suicide at home. Her relatives discovered her. When the medical team arrived, One of the old friends from the neighborhood showed up. Her family was there and they didn't seem to care. Tiffany contacted me last night just to let me know. There were other messages, and she asked me, as gently as possible, if I wanted mine for closure. I honestly don't know what to do about it. I'm experiencing a lot of mental whiplash right now. I never knew this woman. I've had to acknowledge over the last month, since returning home, that she was abusive in our relationship because of everything she put me through with her family. Now it appears that it was a ploy to drive me away so she could be with another man who her family appeared to like. This confuses me even more, because what did he have that I didn't? Did they simply love watching her life fall apart? Was there anything real about her? Was there anything real about the folks with whom I spent years of my life? Returning home was the best decision I've ever made, and I now have complete evidence of that. I can begin therapy to work through this issue, spend time with a group of individuals who are truly trustworthy in person rather than online, and have relatives nearby for support. But yes, this will be with me for a long time. Comments? Comment. Do not read the letter. It will do you no good. Give it to a therapist to read, have them reseal it in another envelope and let them decide whether or not you should read it based on your mental health. Or if it should be unread and burned. OOP, I'm not interested in the letter or anything related to them. It's time to go on with my life. I caught my wife cheating with her old fling on a hike. It turns out she and her friends had been using him as a surrogate joystick. I, Ali, 38, am currently on a camping hiking trip with my wife Liv, 36 and 3 other married couples, Dom and Kate, Sean and Sarah, Bill and Miranda, as well as Liv's longtime friend Ian, 38 and his boyfriend OD, whose real name is Orlando, and no, he was not named after the dog from Garfield. We're all in our mid-30s to early 40s and enjoy spending time outside. We've been wanting to go on this hike for a while. We camp at night and walk throughout the daytime. Everything was great until early evening on the 3rd day of our 8-day journey. We stopped to camp and my wife and I decided to explore the surroundings. We discovered a little waterfall feeding into a creek that followed the trail we had been trekking. It was roughly 5 feet tall and flowed largely onto rocky rocks below. My wife stated that she wanted to rinse off in the stream and waterfall but did not want to soak her clothes. I urged her to go for it because we weren't far from the others and the location was secluded enough. I responded, "If you make it quick you could be in and out in no time." She did exactly that, lingered for a moment before stepping out and air drying with a tiny towel. Ian arrived unexpectedly from behind some trees after she had quickly put her shorts and panties back on. My wife was still topless. Here's where everything got weird. Neither of them responded. She proceeded to dress casually, and Ian approached as if he had seen her naked 100 times before. He told us that Dom wanted us to know something, but I can't remember what. My wife and Ian exchanged small talk before we all headed back to camp. It is now day 5. The hiking track leads to a small town, where we want to spend the night at a local inn to rest, resupply supplies and recover. For the past 2 days, I've been thinking about what happened at the waterfall. I tried to keep my thoughts hidden, but my wife questioned me this morning why I was so quiet yesterday. I told her I was weary, but in reality, I can't stop thinking about something that happened between her and Ian previously. I would normally be less skeptical, but I know Ian is not gay. I've known him for around 8 years and consider him a friend. We husbands and OD are the outliers in this group, as the 4 wives and Ian have been buddies since college. I've asked my wife before if she's ever dated Ian, and she's always responded no. I also inquired if Ian and any of the other ladies in the group had ever been in a relationship, and she denied that too. I might be delusional, but their relationship felt too similar, especially since she was still topless. My wife is usually very conservative about her body, so her lack of reaction to Ian's presence struck me as odd. I have no tangible reason to believe anything is wrong, but I can't shake the sensation that there's more to their history than friendship. Am I being paranoid, or is this a red flag? I am really trying not to leap to conclusions. Update 1. It's early morning on day 6 and I wanted to give you all an update. I told my wife Liv about what happened at the waterfall. I wanted to talk to her while we still had some privacy before heading back out on the trail, and I'm glad I did. I started as non-confrontational as possible, simply remarking that it seemed strange that she wasn't concerned by Ian's presence despite the fact that she was topless. If she had responded in any other way, I would have dropped it, but she became really defensive immediately. Is this why you've been moody? It's not a huge deal. Everyone has seen breasts before, including Ian. You have to grow up. This truly alarmed me. She rarely reacts forcefully until she feels bad about something. I probed harder and she grew more reactionary and defensive, attempting to deflect and belittle every question I posed, with a dash of gaslighting thrown in. I finally had enough and told her, either tell me what's going on or I'm going to confront Ian, who you know won't lie. This is when Liv revealed that she and Ian had a previous sexual relationship. I became enraged and demanded to know why she lied to me after I had previously asked her about it. She claimed she did not lie. They never dated. It was simply an FWB, friends with benefits situation before we became formal. I asked her, startled and agitated, so you were sleeping with him when we first started dating? She retorted, you don't have to be so vulgar. I don't want to discuss this right now. Can't we have this conversation when the trip is over? I said, absolutely not. Either you tell me everything now, or I'll start interrogating your pals. I believe she saw how serious I was and decided to reveal the whole truth. The first part I already knew. She had a string of bad relationships and dating encounters. Liv ascribed a large portion of this to not getting to know the other person before leaping into bed with them. When we started dating, she asked if we could take it slow. I accepted since I was also seeking for something unique and I was extremely intrigued in Liv. She said I could date others until we chose to be official, but I told her I didn't want to date around and preferred to focus on one relationship at a time. She stated it made her really happy. Then she divulged something that would shock everyone if it became public. Liv, Kate, Miranda, and Sarah all had comparable FWB situations with Ian while dating their current husbands. Kate, who is now married to Dom, became fed up with dating the wrong guys shortly after graduation. During this time, she and Ian became FWB. When she met Dom, she urged that they take it slow and get to know each other before becoming intimate. Kate stated it was simple because she was still sleeping with Ian, meeting her sexual needs while focusing on the emotional part with Dom. Ian was happy with the arrangement, assuring her that it was all about finding her special someone. They would talk about Dom and sleep together, and when Kate realized she had found the one, they ended the FWB arrangement and she began her sexual relationship with Dom. They eventually got married. Kate later informed the other women about their agreement. Throughout the years, they each used Ian as a surrogate while looking for the one. I'm only the most current individual involved in this circumstance. I asked Liv to explain her role. The other women's marriages are their own business, but I was curious how this worked out for her. She informed me that after her former lover had too many narcissistic characteristics, she had had enough and wanted to meet a good guy, which I suppose was me. She asked Ian to help her in the same manner he had helped the other three. Ian agreed, explaining that the whole affair was about finding her a life partner. I feel he was sincere in everything. He's a free-spirited type of person. I've had serious chats with Ian, and he's the type of person that will help anyone with anything. We play golf together and he has been in my life since I began dating Liv. I didn't realize he was so involved. Essentially, he would listen, offer counsel, and talk through her emotions so she could wait until she felt comfortable with me. I felt like throwing up. It feels like the entire relationship was a lie. Despite this, I continued to seek answers. I asked when she quit seeing Ian. She claimed it was when we became official. I told her that I thought we were formal when we agreed to date, so I asked her when she considered us official. She explained, dating does not constitute two people as a couple. When you asked me to commit and we had our first intercourse, we were official. She stated that she and Ian had been strictly platonic since that night. I mentioned, that was 7 months into dating. So you've been sleeping with him for 7 months? She became silent and I knew the answer. I said, let me be clear. I would pick you up for a date and we would go out and have a great time, holding hands, cuddling, kissing and making out. Then I'd drop you off and you'd meet Ian, sleep with him and brag about what a terrific person I am? She retorted, don't make it sound so dirty. I was appalled. I wanted to run but we were in the middle of nowhere and there was no way out except to keep walking forward. In retrospect, I wish I had just left, but instead I probed for more information. I inquired, when you say you slept together, do you mean you used him just to get yourself off, or do you mean you did all the positions, foreplay and kinky things that we do? She became very silent again. I gently stated, you must answer my questions. I need to know, and I will find out, whether it is from you or one of them. With that, I motioned towards the other rooms. She answered slowly, all of it, maybe even more than with you. The room began spinning, but I asked the dreaded question, when? When was the last time? She said, The night before our first time together. I'd never wanted to leave someone more than I did at that moment, yet all I could do was sit there in shock. She attempted to console me, but I ordered her to stay away. I needed time. With nowhere else to go, I gathered some blankets and pillows and slept on the floor at the foot of the bed. I passed out for a few hours, but I'm now up and making this update. I want to march out of here, but there's a 12-passenger van at the end of the route that I don't have the keys for. I'll have to stay with these people for another 2.5 days, with another half-day travel back. I do not know what to do. Part of me can understand the reasoning, but largely I'm heartbroken and believe our entire relationship was a scam. I feel like a silver medalist, not a champion. I also have an intense need to share everything with everyone, because all of these other guys are in the same circumstance. We are all here on false pretenses. I do not know what to do. I have about 1 hour till everyone gets up and then I'll have to face Ian and my wife. Am I overreacting? Is this marriage worth saving? I do not see how we can go back. Update 2. I'm back in the comfort of my own house. Unfortunately, I and several others may be facing divorce. I was able to keep it together for the majority of day 6, but I'm sure everyone could tell something was up with me. I remained quiet and pushed myself to get back to the van. I guess Liv grabbed Ian aside about lunchtime and told him what I knew. After that, Ian began attempting to buddy up with me and converse, despite my request that he leave me alone. He persisted a couple more times before I snapped and told him to stop it in a very strong manner. Liv intervened, and they both took the hint. I needed more time to process. The next 24 hours went relatively smoothly. Everyone just kind of left me alone. However, after snapping at Ian, his temperament altered dramatically. He shifted from his customary laid-back demeanor to becoming slightly distant with everyone. He would occasionally make subtle passive-aggressive remarks, nothing too explicit, but clearly intended at me. By the 7th night, we had set up camp, and I had relaxed a little, being more friendly with everyone. We were sitting around the campfire, finishing up the last of our meals. People were conversing, joking and sharing stories. Billy told a long embarrassing story from high school. It was a very humorous story about him and his first girlfriend, and he acted like an idiot. When he was done, he said something like, "I still can't believe I was ever that dumb. I still cringe just thinking about it." Ian responded, "Well, at least you grew up. Some people never grow up and overcome their past." He then stared at me with the most disdainful expression. In that time, I experienced an out-of-body experience and saw only crimson. The filter was gone and logic was out the window. It was on. You know, Ian, you are right. Sometimes we just have to face the past head on. Liv attempted to interrupt, but I disregarded her totally. How about we address the fact that you used to have **** all our wives while we were dating? When I stated it, even the insects were quiet. Oh fellas, didn't you know either? Yeah, while they were holding out on us to make a connection, I air quoted, our future spouses were using Ian here as their human dildo. Dom and Billy seemed perplexed and angry. Sean had a look on his face like he'd just walked in on his grandmother fapping, complete train disaster astonishment. But I wasn't finished. I turned to Dom. It was Kate who devised this incredible strategy. She realized that the secret to developing a long-term relationship was to take things slowly and get to know each other before getting into bed. All you need to deal with the impulses is a best friend who will blow your back out when you get home from your dates all hot and bothered. Dom jumped in at this time. F*****Ku Ali. How do you know this? Oh, I just found out 2 days ago that when I took Liv out for drinks, that wasn't going to be the only thing she was swallowing that night. At this time, Liv lost control and began yelling at me. Why the F*** are you doing this? You don't have to. However, she was cut short when Sean stood up. It is true. It is entirely true. Everyone fell silent and glanced at him. I have known since we were dating. I didn't realize it was also true for everyone else until after we got married. I apologize, Billy. I swear I didn't realize it was you too back then. Billy's expression was one of dread. Sean, we used to have double dates with Miranda and Sarah. We went out several times and then dropped them off at Ian's. Does that imply they? Sean simply stared at him and nodded. I quickly turned to Ian. 2 at once, you hound dog. Then in a fit of bravery, I howled like a wolf. Which in retrospect is pretty terrible, but at the time, I thought it was funny. Arguments broke out among the couples all around us, but an audible gasp and whimper caught everyone's attention. OD sat there, tears spilling down his face. He looked at Ian and said, "Lies. More lies. It never ends. You always do this to me, no matter how much I forgive or how many times I return your affection." He then slapped Ian and bolted down the trail. Ian ran after him. The other three couples mumbled under their breath at each other, then began walking away in different directions. I stood beside the fire, feeling triumphant. Liv approached me and said, "I hope you're happy." I looked her in the eyes and replied, "I've never been more *****ing happy with myself in my whole life. I'm currently 80/20ths on obtaining a divorce." I suggested we postpone any major debates until we were home, unpacked, showered and nourished, because the only thing she would achieve before then is push me to my limits. At that instant, she turned and entered our tent. The following day was the most embarrassing 7 hours of my life. Between the morning pack-up, the hike to the van, loading up and the 4.5-hour journey home, only around 19 words were spoken. Now I'm sitting in my bathroom, newly showered. I'm going to eat some chicken nuggets, drink 3 Dr. Peppers and then converse with my wife. I'm not sure where we're headed from here, or where anyone else will wind up, but I know it won't be pretty regardless. Update 3. It's been 4 weeks since we returned from our trip and everything seems to have crumbled. Dom and Kate are getting divorced. They have been together the longest of the couples and have a 10-year-old son. Dom took the revelation quite hard. In addition to being together the longest, they also had the longest courtship period, 9 months. It's been a difficult pill for him to chew because he remembers they didn't truly got intimate until he began to wonder if he wanted to stay in the relationship. Now that he knows the truth, no matter what Kate says, he will always believe the delay was due to her desire to continue being with Ian. I sat down with Sean and had a couple beers one night. Despite the fact that we just met through our wives, we've been very close friends over the years. Sean stated that Sarah was straightforward with him when they began dating. She informed him she intended to wait at least 3 months before having sex, but that she would still meet with her FWB. Sean liked her but told her he was simply casually dating until he knew for sure, which Sarah was fine with. So, unlike the rest of us, Sean had a clear decision. Sean discovered he was falling for Sarah 2 weeks before the 3-month period ended, following a few double dates with Billy and Miranda. He informed her he wanted to be exclusive. She broke the 3-month limit and they became intimate that night and haven't looked back. Both were completely honest about their adventures at this time, and it appears that their candor paid off handsomely. Sean informed me they had a brief dispute after the campfire incident because Sarah felt they should have excused themselves rather than getting involved, but they are doing well as a couple overall. I've also got an update on Billy and Miranda. They are in the initial stages of reconciliation. Billy is clearly and understandably struggling. He believes she cheated and uses words to excuse it. They dated for 6 months before getting married, and they have 3 children under the age of 7, so they both believe they must try to make it work for the kids. Billy's toughest challenge is recalling dropping both Miranda and Sarah at Ian's on 2 consecutive occasions, knowing she had a threesome arranged. It reduced him to a shell of his former self. Miranda appears to have attempted to explain that they only did something on one of those nights, and it was more akin to a reverse train than a full threesome. Once again, semantics are used as an excuse. Sean assures me Miranda is speaking the truth, because Sarah was the second party and acknowledged it wasn't a true 3-way. But honestly, does it matter? Ian reached out to apologize. I told him to F*** himself, then blocked him. OD also reached out. I guess my revelation was the final straw for him. We have actually talked quite a bit over the last few weeks. We actually talked a lot over the course of a week, despite the fact that we had previously merely been cordial acquaintances. It turns out that Ian and OD had been on and off for 15 years. Ian presents a laid-back, selfless appearance to everyone else, but OD knows him to be incredibly self-centered and manipulative. Ian frequently breaks up with OD for brief periods of time or claims they are on a break so he can do whatever he wants without being labeled a cheater, only to return once he has had his pleasure. Looking back, OD sees that at least 2 of these breaks occurred during these dating situations. However, OD is the most upset since he has tolerated it for so long and has given Ian numerous opportunities. He says this was the final straw. He's returning to Santa Barbara and leaving Ian and the cold, nasty Midwest behind for good. Despite our exhaustion after the hike, Liv and I had the longest chat. I informed her right away that I was not interested in arguing, disputing, or anything like that. I said, "Tell me everything you want to tell me. I will not interrupt or ask questions until you finish. Then I demand the exact same courtesy." She agreed. Her letter was filled with apologies and explanations. She would admit it was wrong, then explain why it was okay or point to a positive conclusion. She expressed her disappointment and hurt with how I behaved at the campsite, but she also realized that Ian deserved equal culpability for poking the bear. When she finished, she asked if I had any questions. I replied, no. And then I began. I informed her that our entire relationship is based on false pretenses. I can see where you were coming from and why you tried the entire FWB thing. Your 3 best friends did it and scored excellent husbands before you. But on some level, all 4 of you had to understand that starting a relationship like this was wrong. It was tremendously distressing to learn that you were sleeping with someone else while we were getting to know each other, and I believe it impeded the natural progression of our relationship. I added, it has significantly altered my memory of our early days together. Do you remember that fantastic day we had approximately 4 or 4.5 months into our relationship? We spent the day together. It finished with us back on my couch, kissing, your shirt off, and me caressing you over your shorts. It was getting quite hot. You paused and apologized, stating you wanted to but weren't quite ready. You needed to be absolutely certain. I assured you that everything would be fine, and you gazed at me affectionately, kissed me passionately, and then departed. I stopped before saying, I can only guess you left my place and went to Ian's. As she nodded, tears streamed down her face. I said, I invested that energy in you. You chose to give it to someone else rather than returning it to me. I might have been able to get over this if it had ended in the 1st or 2nd month, when we were more relaxed. But after that, we spent a lot of time together and you maintained your relationship with him until the day before we became official. You enjoyed having us both. You did whatever mental gymnastics were required to justify it to yourself. I told her, you may not realize it, but this last portion is the toughest part of it all for me. Learning that you were far more adventurous and exciting with him is like a dagger to the heart. It makes me feel like I'm second best, like I'm the retirement plan you choose, just good enough. She interjected saying, no, not like that, I love you. He was only having sex, it was not real. That's how it is when they don't matter. It's simpler to be free and wild then. And so on. I waited for her to finish before saying, remember, we agreed it was my turn to talk. Afterward I remarked, I see your point of view, but it is not mine. As your husband, I believe it is my responsibility to give you my full energy, emotional, physical, cerebral, and sensual. I believe I have accomplished this during the past 8 years. I believe you have given me your best in some areas, but I now see I have not received your best in others. And as a male, I have to acknowledge that sensuous energy is really essential to me. The fact that you did not trust me with all of your sensual energy was the determining factor. I do not think I can recover from this, and I want to file for divorce. The scene became chaotic from there. She started crying hard, asking, giving herself and pleading with me to start over. I eventually removed myself from the situation. Later, she mentioned that we were just in an emotional state right now and that I needed to give it some time. This gave me pause, and I agreed to her terms of 3 weeks. As I previously stated, it has been 4 years, and my feelings have been consistent. We met with a joint divorce lawyer, who will represent both of us. There are no children involved and we both want to sell the house, so the initial meeting went smoothly. She has been tremendously depressed, as have I, but this is for the best. Sometimes things simply don't work out. Thank you very much.